Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeran from Jeranism with a special edition Sunday Globebusterish Flat Talk episode. Bob is a little under the weather today, so I'll be taking the helm, which usually means sound and audio issues and other such nonsense. So we will truly hope that we can keep that to a minimum. I do have two guests joining me, the other two regular Globebuster panel members. First, we have John the Morgile. John, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Looks good. I can see your audio. Everything looks good so far, so doing well. How about you?
I'm doing very well, man. And if we could get also some feedback from the people in the live chat, just let us know on that end if everything seems okay. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. But, yeah, doing okay. A little bit dreary day down here in Florida today, but it's also a little chilly, like unseasonably chilly today. And, of course, that means probably 70 degrees. But, yeah, doing well, man.
Yeah, us Californians in Florida, we have big problems when we think it's cold when it's 65. We're like, hey, it's too cold. Yeah, and we also remember. Go ahead.
When I first came down here from Virginia, I was pretty young, but I'd be like in shorts and a t-shirt, and everybody else is wearing like long pants, jackets, hoodies, everything. So yeah, you get used to it.
Yep, indeed. And we also have joining us the great, the powerful, and wise Iru Landucci. Iru, are you with us?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that words.
You're welcome. Anytime.
I really miss the show on Sundays.
Yeah, me too. So the good thing is that Bob has said that he should be better next week, so that's our hope. So Bob, get better.
And it was a lot of controversy about the shutdown channel of Globebuster.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's talk about that real quick, because John asked the same question before the show. He was asking me what exactly happened with the Globebusters channel. And so I think I described it on Raw last week, but I'll just kind of quickly summarize it again. And that was that we got a fraudulent copyright complaint about the logo. Basically, it had come from what looked like Columbia Pictures. That's the way that YouTube sends the email, that it says there's a copyright complaint. It's Columbia Pictures about your logo or whatever it was. So, Bob and I decided we would change the logo, which we did. We changed the text because I think that even the font that we used was a Ghostbusters font. So we changed all that. And then Bob, to be safe, he pulled down all of the videos. Not all the videos on the channel, because a lot of the channel had mirrored videos, but he pulled down all of the Globebuster content just so we could find out and wait to see what we were going to do with all of our intros that, had little ghost-like logo with the earth behind it. So anyway, he took all that down, and then in the meantime was trying to get in contact with Columbia Pictures to figure out, what was going on with this copyright strike. Well, in that downtime, where the channel only had mirrored videos, our monetization was removed. So what YouTube did is they looked at the channel and said, hey, none of this content is original. And so they were right, because we had taken down all of our videos that were original, and all that was up was the mirrored videos. So they removed the monetization. So, for instance, next week when we have Globebusters, I don't think that we can do super chats anymore. Obviously, there won't be any ads on it. The channel can basically not make money because at that particular time it had no unique content. So since then, Bob finally talked to the head attorney for Columbia Pictures, who got back to us and said that copyright complaint did not come from them. They had no idea about the channel, they had no idea about the videos, and they certainly didn't initiate the copyright complaint. So that's what tells us, number one, that it was fraudulent. Number two, Bob started asking questions. Well, okay, here's our logo, here's what we've changed it to, here's the font we were using, here's what we've changed it to, but we have all these old videos that do have some have some little logos in there in the intro, and she said everything was fine. She said, no, you've actually shown me that you've taken steps to not copyright infringe. And so therefore, she said, no, you could put everything back up. It's great that you've changed your logo going forward. So that's what Bob did. So this week, all the videos, I believe, on the Globebusters regular channel went back up, all the unique content. And then what we're going to have to do is YouTube allows you to reapply for monetization. I actually don't know many people who have ever been granted that. So we don't have our hopes up. I don't think that the channel, me personally, I don't think that the channel will be remonetized, but I don't know. So we can keep our fingers crossed and hope that in a month, when we reapply, that they'll look at the channel, see all the unique content, and then say, okay. The reason I'm not really hopeful about that is they took away the monetization for Jeranism Raw channel about a year ago, and people might wonder why I don't post anymore over there. And they took away the monetization for the exact same reason. It said that the content was not unique. Well, the thing about that channel is it is completely unique. It's my radio show. So even though I keep reapplying at the end of every month, you have another chance to reapply, and it takes them a month to respond, they keep coming back and telling me that the content is not my own. So I don't, and who do you talk to? You can't really, there's no person to talk to. There's no way to, all they let you do is just reapply a month later. But all the content on that channel is my own. So that kind of makes me a little bit afraid that, it's going to go the same way for Globebusters. In a month, we'll reapply, and they'll just return an answer of, nope, none of the content's not unique, even if it is. So, yeah, so there was a lot of people on other channels, other shows saying that we removed it for this, that, or the other reason. All of them were wrong because, as I just explained, that's the reason that the content was removed. That's the reason that we ended up getting the demonetization. And so that's basically what happened with that channel. I do want to mention real quick one thing. There is a new Globebusters 24/7 channel that we have put up. The videos are up on that channel. So if everyone, we'll even take a time out for everyone to do that right now. If you scroll down in the description of this video, you'll see, and let me actually go there myself so I know I'm talking about the right thing. If you scroll down, you'll see my little intro for today. And then the very first link in there says, please subscribe to the new Globebusters 24/7 channel found here. Click that. I think we've got, let me open it myself and see what we've got. We've got currently 3 people watching the Globebusters 24/7 live stream. Hey guys, come over here. No, I don't think they can hear me. We've got 281 subscribers so far. That is playing a video right now. So go ahead, and if you want to do that, go ahead and click subscribe, and you will subscribe to the Globebusters 24/7 channel. And that's basically what's going on with the channel so far. We hope we get our monetization back, but no bother either way. And we will be back next week with Globebusters on the Globebusters channel. Even though we're not monetized, maybe we'll figure out another way to have people, if they want to help or they want to support, maybe they can do PayPal or something like that to get the channel some support until we can get our monetization back. And if we get a monetization back. So did that kind of make sense, what I just explained? Or
Yeah. And does TFR post the radio shows to YouTube, or
no?
They don't.
Nope.
So why? That's so weird that they would say that the reason was because you had no original content. And that's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and that's why now, if you guys look at my channel, I've been doing the Jeranism Raw show live from my channel, from my Jeranism channel. But I think it's really weird too. So I'm not sure how to best handle it. I've started thinking, well, maybe I need to be doing my live show live from that channel. Again, there's no monetization on it, and it's not like I make a ton from those videos anyway, but it's still nice to see, $5 or $10 made on a video. You're like, hey, that's nice. I'll take that. You know how it goes, John. Any bit helps you continue doing what we do. So, hey, thank you. I see Bro Darren said in the live chat, come to Jeranism live show. Yeah, so now it's got 19 people watching. So at least some people are coming over and subscribing. Thank you guys very much for doing that. I do appreciate it.
So I was also going to say I'd be willing to bet that Columbia Pictures loves Globebusters, because after this show, I guarantee you there's at least some percentage of people that when they go to look up Globebusters online, they either inadvertently put in Ghostbusters, or just for some nostalgia, maybe go back and watch the old Ghostbusters movies because, we reminded them of it. So, I think Columbia Pictures probably loves us, and it just goes to show you just exactly how much time these trolls have on their hands. I mean,
wow.
There's a lot of people that just literally sit around all day long and think of new ways to ruin our days.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, well said. Yeah, no, it's really sad. And that, like I was telling you before, in order for somebody to do what they did, they had to go and get the email address for whoever it is that has the copyright holdings on Ghostbusters. They had to get all the person's information and then enter it into the copyright complaint as if it was that. So they were doing it just to wreck the channel. I mean, that was their goal, and actually they, in the long run, succeeded really by having us pull down our real videos. And then I don't know if YouTube does a monthly kind of review of monetized channels or whatever, and they looked at the channel and said, hey, all this is mirrored videos. Even though Bob has gotten permission for every single video that we've mirrored, Bob gets permission from that person. But I think that when you really look at it from a YouTube standpoint, it makes sense. They don't want channels that are monetized that are just mirroring other people's work, right? A channel that's monetized should really be about your own content. You're bringing something fresh to the table. So from a YouTube standpoint, I can understand it just is a bad situation for us, because it just so happened that the reason we pulled down all those videos was because of the copyright complaint. We were afraid. We didn't know what to do about it. And then in that meantime, somehow they checked the channel, saw that there was only mirrored videos up, and then removed the monetization. So, yeah, we can hope it comes back, but I'm just basing it off my channel, Jeranism Live, or Raw, Jeranism Raw, which has not been monetized for over a year, and every time, and it takes, even though they say it takes a month for them to open it up for you just to hit the reapply. Then when you hit reapply, it says, we'll let you know within a month. So then a month after that, then they might say, nope, sorry, you can't do it again. You can reapply a month later. So really, even though it sounds like a month, it's 2 months. So even though I keep applying every 2 months, they keep denying it, and there's no way there's not even a button to try and retract the claim, or to try and question it, or to say, hey, can you look at my channel? That really is my content. That's my radio show. That's me you hear. But there's no way to do that. So it's unfortunate, but I guess I understand it. I mean, it's also happened, I don't know if you guys saw this week, that it happened to Owen Benjamin. Did you see that?
No, what happened with him?
He had his channel demonetized. So, yeah, so that, I mean, that's, hurtful. He seems to think that he'll be okay with it. He's actually starting a new website. If people want to check that out, it's called unauthorized.tv. And here's the thing about Owen Benjamin. In his most recent video, actually, I don't know if it's his most recent. I saw it today. Might be a day old. But he was going through and just telling people, yeah, my channel was demonetized. He said that he had channel memberships on, which I'm not even able to do. It doesn't give me the option to do that on my channel for some reason, even though I pass all the rules. But he said that he had more than 3,000 people signed up paying $5 a month. So, I mean, that's $15,000 a month. Now, hold on, before I get ahead of myself. Google does take 30%, or YouTube takes 30% of those channel monetizations. So let's not say 15,000. Let's say it's $10,000 a month. That's without his super chats. So if you get all those super chats, and I saw some shows where he was making $1,000 just in a 3 or 4 hour stream. So you're talking about $1,000 a day. You're talking $10,000 a month in just channel memberships, and then you're talking about all the money he was making from monetization. Just ads. If you don't even include the channel memberships or don't even include super chats, you're still making the money from the ads. So this is the kind of person, if he has been making that kind of money for a couple months, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's the kind of person that could put away some of that money and could start another website. That's something I wish that we all could do. The problem is that it's very costly. It's not cheap to to run your own kind of web video service. It's not cheap to run your own kind of live streams. I think, at least according to his video, that's what he's trying to do on this unauthorized.tv. So go to that website. You might want to check it out. You might want to subscribe or sign up. I don't know how long it'll last, but I give more power to him. I wish him all the luck in the world, because that's really what we need people to do. And a video, and somebody like that was making that kind of money might have the actual money to secure a video on demand service, a live streaming service where people can go to a website and pick up all those kind of videos. I've never had the kind of money to do that. On my Patreon, I think I've got 175 people, 175 patrons. So I certainly don't have 3,000, and I certainly don't get the kind of super chats which he does, which is fine. More power to him. I love the work that he does, and he's somebody who is observant. He said today, it was kind of funny, or I watched the video today, but he said, this is what happens when you're too observant, when you point out too much stuff, and that's what we're all kind of afraid of happening to us, is that that's really when they come down on you, is if you just aren't toting the company line. So that's basically what happened with him. So everybody can check out Unauthorized TV. But yeah, since then he's been demonetized. So it's not just us, it's happening to lots of people. The other thing that happened this week, or what's coming out in 3 days, is the Logan Paul documentary, which I personally, after watching the interview with Robbie Davidson, and you can check that out, it's the last video I put out. I did an interview with Robbie Davidson the other day, and we talked basically exclusively about that Logan Paul documentary and also the interview that Robbie had with him. And I thought Logan came across as somebody who is very sincere. Now, we have to understand that somebody like Logan Paul, somebody who's famous like that, somebody is constantly busy, and there's no way that he has looked at 5% of the flat earth stuff that John, myself, or Eru has. There's just no way. So we can't expect for somebody like that to be as in-depth in his documentary as we would expect. It's going to have some comedy in there, I'm sure, but I think that it's going to be good for flat earth overall. And the other thing, if you want to check out that video that Robbie had to say that I thought was interesting, is basically in the long run, Robbie's kind of responsible for this documentary, and he said as much, because one of the mistakes that I had made in the previous comments, and I think I made it on Globebusters and on my Raw show, is that I said, hey, everybody's saying that Logan Paul was paid to come to this event, which isn't true. I said him and his eight crew all paid for VIP tickets. Well, Robbie corrected me in that and said, no, that's not true. What initially happened was 4 tickets were bought by somebody with the name Logan Paul. Well, when Robbie looked at that list and saw Logan Paul's name on there, there was a phone number. So he called that number, spoke with a girl, said, is Mr. Paul there? She said, nope, that's the wrong number. He said, oh, there's no Logan Paul. She said, nope. And he said, okay. He said, what's this concerning? And he said, oh, it's concerning these tickets that were just purchased for the Flat Earth Conference. And then she said, oh, no, that was me. I just purchased those tickets for Logan Paul. He wants to go to the event. He's going to be in Denver anyway, and so he wants to attend with 3 of his buddies. So then at that point, Robbie said, oh, would he be interested in documenting it? Because if he wants to document his trip there, I'll give him media passes and VIP passes. So she said, okay, let me talk with Logan Paul. Let me find out. So she talked to Logan Paul, called Robbie back and said, no, he thinks it's a great idea, but he also now wants to increase the tickets to 8. And so Robbie basically upgraded them to the media passes and the VIP passes. And then he came with his camera crew and a few of his friends and girlfriends, and they filmed the interview with Robbie Davidson. They filmed the event, and now they're making a documentary on it. So really, in the long run, when you kind of look at it, Robbie is kind of responsible for this documentary. So Robbie also said in that interview with me that he's fully aware that now at this point it may not be the best piece. He doesn't know if it's going to be a hit piece. He doesn't know if it's supposed to be comedy. He doesn't know. But he said he's willing to take responsibility for it. So when that documentary comes out, he's going to be doing some rounds on Patricia's show and probably on Raw and probably this show, Globebusters, because he will need to either say, I'm sorry, and I'll never let that happen again. If it turns out to be a hit piece, I don't think it will be. I think it'll be a honest piece from somebody who's honestly questioning some of these things. And when you listen to that interview, sounds like Logan Paul is the kind of person that wants to go and journey Antarctica, wants to go to the North Pole, wants to do some of these things. And again, I go back and say the same thing that I said earlier with Owen Benjamin and saying, here's somebody who has the kind of money to do some of the things that we want to do. Logan Paul is the same way. The guy's making millions of dollars a year. So he's the kind of person that if he really gets that bug in him, that he wants to find out the shape of the earth, he wants to find out where we live, he's going to be the one that goes to Antarctica and tries to look around. Again, we don't think that they'll let him do that. We think he'll take him to a ceremonial pole and say, here you go, take a picture with a penguin. Here, you're standing next to the South Pole now get out of here. But he's also the kind of person that says, no, I want to be able to journey down there. I want to be able to go on my own and look around. So it should be interesting. I mean, what do you guys think?
It makes me wonder what YouTube is going to do to his channel, because if he really does come out as a legit flat earther and it's not a hit piece, which I've talked to a lot of people who still seem to think that it is going to be like a big punk or whatever, but I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the guy's work or his character to say for sure, but I like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Me too.
Because if he's coming out and saying that he's coming out of the flat earth closet and he's got this trailer where at least it looks like he's exploring the hypothesis, which is always going to be step one towards becoming a flat earther. I think that it's a really positive thing, but what's YouTube going to do? I would wager that if he does come out legit and start pushing flat earth truth, that they're going to try to, put a cap on it, put a lid on it.
Right, which they've been doing they've been doing that a lot. I mean, that's obviously their goal. That's what and they can get away with really anything. I mean, in the mainstream, we know that. You put something on the news and the world's going to believe it the next day. It's just the way it works. And so the only hope we have is that, videos like this or his documentary gets a few more people to look into it. They find your channel, John. They find Iru's channel. They find my channel. And from there, they start to do their own investigations and make their own decisions. And that's what I think is great about YouTube. That's what I think it should be for, is people allowed to look at whatever they want to look at and go from there. So I agree. Here's the reason, John, that I don't think it's going to be a hit piece. And again, I could have crow on my face in a couple days easily. But his best friend, this is Logan Paul, and I've never watched any of his videos really, but his best friend, whose name is Mike, I believe, is the one that got Logan Paul to look into flat earth. He's a flat earther, and so for it to be a hit piece would be a little bit strange, because he's basically going to be throwing his best friend who lives with him under the bus, because his best friend is a flat earther who introduced it to Logan, asked him to go to the conference, and is probably making this documentary kind of for or with his best friend Mike. So, again, if I had a best friend and they were interested in a certain subject, I don't think that I would go to these events and then make a hit piece and just kind of leave my best friend, saying, what the hell did you do that for? But again, we don't know. It comes out March 20th. Let's hope that it's positive for Flat Earth. I don't expect it to be, a revealing kind of flat earth documentary where there's things maybe we didn't know about that are being said. No, I think it's just going to go through some of the things that we've said, highlight some of the points, highlight the conference, highlight some of the things that Robbie said during that interview, and that's what it's going to be. So my hope is that it's good, but everybody can check that out if you want on Logan Paul's channel on March 20th is the day that that's supposed to be released. And if you want to hear Robbie and I talk about it and hear some clips from his interview with Logan Paul, you can check that out on my channel. It's the video that came out before this one. So,
and I think it's really important that we welcome him to the flat earth community and, give him the benefit of the doubt, because like you said, he's probably only been looking into this for a relatively short period, although there's just such a wealth of information out there, way more than there was 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, there's tons of information out there about flat earth, but because of that, there's also tons of misinformation out there about flat earth. And so it really is, it's difficult to sort of filter through all of the bad stuff to get to the golden nuggets in there. But I just see it happening so often where somebody like that's very high profile like he is, there is always, for a lot of the bigger flat earthers, there is some egos involved. And so people see him as sort of a threat to their niche. And there's other motives too, but you see flat earthers treating newbies to the topic really bad. And, if somebody makes a mistake, that's really no reason to ostracize them and to get all bent out of shape. And you see that happening a lot. So I would just say, give him some room, welcome him to the community. If he does make some mistakes, correct him and move on, maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe you're wrong, but at least address it civilly and don't just jump to conclusions that, if he makes a mistake, then, he's doing that intentionally or something. So I think that's real important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that we need to be welcoming to these people. And again, I totally agree with John that we got to give people the benefit of the doubt, give them a chance to say their piece and to come aboard and look into this stuff for themselves. That's what I always say, right? That's what my channel's for. I just want people to see things in a new way, and they can either watch what I have to say about things and block me if they don't like it, or they can continue watching my videos if they like my train of thought. So speaking of having, things removed and monetization removed and things, just so people know, and until you hear differently, I used to have an Amazon link. It's actually still in the description. I used to mention it in all my videos. And what would happen is people could go to this Amazon link, shop for Amazon products, and then I would make usually 2 to 3% on whatever items that they bought, which was really nice. It started out that it was, $20 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. All of a sudden it was doing really well. Well, right when it was starting to kick off and do really well, I have been removed from the Amazon affiliates program. So their reason for removing me was something in their deep down bylaws that says that I'm not allowed to ask people to bookmark my link. They have to go to my website, which I say all the time. My current rhetoric is what I say. I say, go to my website, click support, click Amazon, and go shop there. But they found a video that was over a year and a half old in which I said the words, hey, you can bookmark my link. And they removed the monetization, or not monetization, it's called their affiliate program. The other thing that's bad about that, just so people know, is that it's kind of the same thing where you get paid your little affiliate fee like 2 months after a purchase, because what they have to do is make sure that the customer doesn't return the item, right? So they don't pay me until like 2 months after the customer has ordered the item, they've been delivered to their house, and they've kept it for longer than the 30 days or whatever the rules is for Amazon. And then I would get my affiliate fee. Well, when they remove me, they just say gone starting today. So that means that everybody who's purchased something in the last 2 months, I'll never see any of that percentage. I have tried to, you can't appeal the decision. So I appealed it and said, hey, this was a one-time mistake. You found something from a year and a half ago. I apologize. I won't do it in the future. They said they would get back to me in 24 hours, and that's 2 days ago. I haven't heard anything back from them yet. But again, it's one of those things where I'm not keeping my hopes up too high. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to make or break me, but it was something nice that I think people who couldn't support my channel monetarily might have done to kind of help out. So I'm just letting everybody know, if you have that link bookmarked, if you use that link, as of today, it's not going to help me at all if you use it. I might come back in a day or two and get an email that says, hey, we agree that it was a one-time mistake, and going forward, don't do it again. That would be great, and then I'll let everybody know, hey, the links are back on. But as of today, I will not make anything going forward. So just another way that they kind of limit what we can do. I thought that I was helping Amazon out. I have a couple videos out where I talk about certain products, maybe my 90% off smoking cigarette video, where in my description were 4 or 5 links to different items that I had purchased on Amazon. So that's nice. People can watch that video if they like saving 90% on smoking cigarettes by rolling your own. They could click those links. They could go to Amazon. They purchase those items, and then I make a 2% commission on those items, which is a great program. It's a great deal for everybody in my book. Amazon wins. They get some purchases. People win. They get to save 90% on smoking cigarettes. And I win by making 2% of those purchase prices. So it's a great program. I liked it, but if they're just going to take it away again, what can you do? Hopefully they see the problem and the fact that they found a one-off video a year and a half ago. I don't know how they're looking through that. I don't know if somebody found it. And then, like you said, almost the same thing with these trolls. Were they able to somehow submit that to Amazon and say, hey, this guy is breaking your agreement by asking people in this one video to bookmark your link?
It had to be.
Yeah.
It had to be that,
I
because
really doubt they're listening to my videos.
If you really think that somebody with Amazon policy enforcement is going back through your old videos trying to find you slip up, I mean, that's ridiculous. But somebody who's a Globe Earth troll, I wouldn't put it past him at all.
No, especially
Sure.
especially if maybe, and this is either here nor there, but again, if it's somebody who maybe is part of the Amazon's affiliate program and they knew that rule, and then they heard a video I did and they heard me say, "Hey, bookmark this link," and they say, "Oh, nope, we got to end that. We got to make sure that he doesn't get paid for that." And again, so what are you going to do? I've tried to always maintain everything by the rules. I don't want to break anybody's rules. I don't want to break Amazon's rules. So I do try and do things by their book. I did not. I did know that you can't do that, but I don't remember ever saying that. But it is in that video. I did say, "Hey, bookmark this link." I didn't mean to say that. Again, I know I've read before that you need to have them click from your website or from your YouTube description, and you're not allowed to say those words, "bookmark my link."
What difference does it make, though? Like, I
Yeah.
guess I can understand it, but that's ridiculous.
Again, it's pretty ridiculous. So, again, I'm just letting people know that I think there's a lot of Globebuster listeners and Jeranism listeners that might have that link saved somewhere, or they might click my website and go to. Right now, it's still on the website. It's even in the description for this video. But just letting people know, if you click that right now, there's no. I doubt that I'll see any of that income. But again, we'll wait and see what happens when they return my my appeal. The other thing that's going on, there's a new Flat Earth podcast out, so check that out. It has an old but familiar voice, so that's a good program, so check that out. John, you also came out with a video this week, right?
I did, yeah. I've actually come out with one recently. It's actually part of a series. I'm working on the second part of it right now. I should have out this week. But yeah, just this video, I kind of went back to I'm going back to the arguments that originally led me over the fence towards Flat Earth, because I just think that there's always going to be new people looking into this, and although the number of new people looking into Flat Earth, I think, is going down sort of by design by the big social media giants. There definitely appears that they're steering people away from Flat Earth truth and really steering them more towards Flat Earth misinformation, as I said earlier. But anyway, so bringing it back to basics with these videos, sort of in the spirit of the older documentary style videos that I've done in the past. So yeah, check those out on the Morgile channel when you get a chance.
Yeah, definitely do that. I want to show real quick. I did go to. Hold on, let me get my thing up here. All right, and I'll show people what I'm looking at. I believe it was Tuesday of this week. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Can't remember exactly. Tuesday or Wednesday. It was a great day here in the town I live in Merced, which is, you can't see it in this view here. Merced is somewhere over here. Ish. Anyway, we went to the Monterey Bay, my wife and I. It was a beautiful day here. We said, okay, we packed up all of our equipment. We got our cameras already, the IR camera, the regular camera. We got to get everything together. We got our mirror together because we were going to do the observation, and I'll just show everybody exactly what that observation is. Basically, we went to this point here, which is called Lover's Point in Pacific Grove. The plan was for me to stand about here on this little shore, or is it here? And we were going to look across at, and the reason this is so great is because there's these huge stacks in a city called Moss Landing, which I'm not seeing. Here it is. So this city here, there's these huge smokestacks. You can see them, these two pieces here. Basically, when you draw a straight line to those smokestacks from that place over at, move over. Okay, so you'll see that there's a place at this beach here, and you can actually drive up right on Potero Road. This is an easy road to get to. This is a little parking lot. You just go up over this hill. It doesn't look like a hill. It is actually a pretty high hill. You go uphill and then you go down, and you're right on this beach. The great thing is then at that point, you've got somebody who's back 14 miles away, 13 and a half miles away at this point here, who can line up and look directly at the smokestacks, which are easy to see from 14 miles. What the plan was is to have my wife on the beach here in Moss Landing. Here we go. So about right here, we were going to set her up with the mirror, and I was going to drive. It's only about maybe 15, 20-minute drive from here down the one around to Pacific Grove. I was going to go here and observe her. She has a full-length back of the door kind of mirror, and we were going to do basically the mirror observation, which when you're talking about from the ground, oops, that's not Lover's Point, over here. When you're talking about from the ground here, looking across, and she would basically be at the water line. We've seen other videos done by the Flat Reality Earth Explorers, sorry, that channel, that has done this exact observation. I have not yet done it myself to see for myself, and that's why I went there, because this would be kind of the nail in the coffin. What you're talking about here when you're looking across and doing, and shoot, am I showing this to everybody? Oh, good. I scared myself. When you're looking across at this distance, which is 14 miles, about 13 and a half if you're talking about, 13 and a half miles if you're talking about to this beach point here. It was 14 miles to the stacks, 13 and a half to here. But there should be a 40-foot hump of water. Remember that if you're talking about being on a ball, you've got two people that are 14 miles away from each other. There is a hump of, I think it's 30 to 40 feet of water in between you two. So if you've got somebody who's at this Moss Landing at the beach, I'm talking about going right down to the water and sticking this mirror right against the water here, and you've got somebody who's 3 foot high, whatever a tripod would be, 3 or 4 foot high over here, and they're observing, and what you do is you go when the sun is setting. Obviously the sun is going to set to our west here, so that this person is just taking the mirror and reflecting the sun to this person observing here. Now, we've already seen the Flat Reality Earth Explorers channel do this. I'm trying to do it myself. The problem was, as we got to, we were driving here on the 183, and as we kept getting closer to the ocean, it kept getting worse and worse. We're like, what is going on with the weather? By the time we got, and it was actually kind of funny, by the time we got to this location here, it was windy as all get out. We're like, what is going on here? We started up this hill. As soon as we got to the top of it, we were being pelted in the face with sand. It was miserable. It was like, what the hell? We had to go hide behind. There's a little sign here. We had to hide behind this little post. We couldn't even get closer to the ocean than that. There was just sand coming off the ocean. We looked it up. There was 29 mile per hour winds. The white caps in the ocean were unbelievable. So again, I'll go back. It just sucks. It takes me 2.5 hours to drive from my home, which is way over yonder and way even further, way over here. We're in Merced. So, it takes all the time to drive all the way over to the beach. It takes about 2.5 hours. We get there, we have all our equipment set up, and we get slapped in the face with sand, and we got turned away. So that is another observation that I'm trying to do myself. I do have that on my channel. You can check that out. It's called Monterey Mirror Observation, I think, proves flat Earth, something like that. But I really want to see it myself, and then what we want to do is we want to extend that. Once we can see the mirror, which I feel like we can. I've seen the Flat Reality Earth Explorers do it. I just want to do it myself. Once I see that, there's even greater distances that we can extend this. The problem is when you're trying to locate a mirror on the beach from distance, it's incredibly difficult. I've tried it before. The great thing about this, like I said, is these smokestacks are clearly visible from a far distance. They're like 500 feet tall. So the thing is, we want to then expand that and actually try and do it more out this way. So we'd have somebody at Lover's Point and even start shooting across. As you see, if we get out to Santa Cruz, we're talking 23, 24, and you can get over here 25, 26 miles. That brings that hump in between the two people to enormous heights, where even at 30 feet, how the hell are we seeing a mirror observation? So anyway, just telling people that that's something that I went to do this week and was not able to do. Also want to show what I did yesterday. I had to wake up at 5 in the morning. That was fun because if people remember from the documentary Behind the Curve, where is my Holt, California? There we go. So I drove from Merced to Holt, California, which is about that's about an hour and a half. And people might remember this canal, which is called Victoria Canal. That's Victoria Island, but this is Victoria Canal. This was the distance of 3.88 miles that was attempted during that movie. So we went again because we wanted to see if we could make sure the point of going yesterday, because it was just Enrique and I, was to make sure we had line of sight before we did it again. So we didn't want to get there and then realize, like last time, or like the movie kind of showed, we're not really sure, was there something blocking our view? So I'm actually going to show you guys some video that proves that absolutely it looks like there was something. Now here's the problem. We went and did this observation at night. So I'm talking about when we did it for the movie. That was done during the night. So it's hard to see whether or not there was any obstruction. But when we went yesterday, we learned that there is. The problem is we can't know if that's just now or if that was there. Basically, we're talking about a bush or a tree in the way. But let me just show you so we can zoom in. The problem is that when you take this and you look at this road, you can follow this white line. It looks very straight, It looks very straight. Maybe there's a little bit of a and then you can come down here. You can see it's a little bit maybe not straight. The problem is when you start trying to draw this line for 3.88 miles, you keep running into problems, meaning this was our observation spot. If people remember where I stood with the laser, I was standing in this little burnout spot here, and we were trying to look down this road. Well, no matter what you do, if you draw a line from here to the end, let me show you. Hopefully this isn't boring anybody. I just wanted to show you what happened. And this is basically where Enrique was at the very end of the observation post. So originally you can look at this line and say, oh, that looks good. The line looks fine. But as you keep going through this line, you realize places like this, where you'll see here, this is off the side of the road. This is not on the road anymore. And the problem is that what were the bushes like on the night we did the observation here? See here, this is going through bushes. See here, this is actually going through a tree or through this bigger bush. So the problem is that this really isn't much of a straight line observation. See this here? So let me show you the video. Let me get that up. So just so you can see, what we tried to do is basically see if we had this line of sight so we could do the observation again. What we learned is we have a good line of sight from, not Bonetti, sorry, where's Calpac Road? Calpac. We have pretty good line of sight from here, this fence from here. For the most part, this can keep it pretty good. It still kind of goes over a few spots, but we learned that the 3.88 miles definitely does not work. Let me show you that 1 second. I'm going to have to get this set up. Make sure I've got this on and bring you over to, where is, there. Okay. So, transition. Now remember, the video footage here that you're going to be seeing is infrared, so it's not pretty. Let me see. Oh, this is basically the canal when I got there, so you can kind of see what we did. This is bright and early in the morning here. Unbelievable footage. It's hard to take, it's video with infrared, so it's not going to be the clearest. We've got some of these artifacts here, sun artifacts, but this is the canal, and you'll see that the road from here looks, and oh man, these mountains are awesome. This is not at all what it looks like when you're looking at it. They look like just basically silhouettes of the mountain, but look at what it looks like when you zoom in with infrared. Unbelievable. It sounds like Jay Tolan Media. It's simply incredible. I can't even explain how great this looks compared to when we were there. But anyway, if you look at this canal when you're walking down this road, it looks extremely straight. This just looks like a straight ass road, but as I just showed you on Google Earth, it actually is not straight. And when you look at 4 miles, you learn that. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about real quick. So this video here started out with, I'm at the far end. So at this point, I'm all the way down, like I showed you guys, at the 3.88 miles. And I'm trying, now look at this road. So this is because I'm zoomed in so deeply. Now you can see that the road actually is windy. It doesn't look like that when you're there if you're not zoomed in like this. Remember, this is a 4 mile zoom. Well, actually, it's about a 3 mile zoom because I'll show you why. We couldn't get a line of sight from 4 miles. I couldn't see Enrique. He couldn't see me. We were very confused as to what was going on. I said, why don't you drive back to that Calpac Road, which is 3 miles from the distance I was. And so he started to drive back, and I said, man, why can I not see you? You'll notice here in a second and sorry, it's not the clearest video. It's also secondhand. As he started to drive back, you're going to see here in a second what happened. Okay, 1 second. So again, I'm trying to find, well, let's go back to the left turn. It's over there. There we go. So this is where I expected to see him at 4 miles, but I couldn't see him. And he said, oh, I'm driving back right now. And then I realized, look where his car is. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but his car is actually behind this bush. So we realized there is no line of sight there. See, he's back behind that bush, which might have a lot to do with the outcome of that result. But again, I'm not even able to say that because we don't know what this bush was the night that we did the observation. That was over a year ago. And also this bush could have been lower. We're not really sure. There's no way for us to know. All we know is going forward from this point, or at least yesterday, there's no way we can do the 4 mile observation because look at his car is driving on the road, but the road is behind this bush. So even though it looks very straight, I just think it's hard for people to recognize when you're talking about 4 miles, what can happen in 4 miles. There's just, and you'll see here, I think it goes a little bit further until we can start to see his truck. Come on back. The other thing that's incredible, did I just see it? And see, now we can see his truck coming from behind that hill. Did I just see it right here? You might. Okay, right here. Let me pause it right here for a second. Oh, Damn, if I can pause it there for a second, I want to just show you. Okay, that right there, you can see back here, is the Sierra Nevada mountains. Unbelievable that I wasn't even looking for these until I was watching the video. I'm like, holy smokes, that's the snow-capped peaks of... And now, again, if you zoom back, you can't see that. I mean, but look at that. There you go. That's this. It may not look like it to you. You might be saying, no, that's the clouds or something. That is the Sierra Nevada mountains. Impossible to see with your eye, but look at the infrared reveals. And again, just to show you, so again, you can see now we can see his car. And just to show you what it looks like here, this is the 3-mile observation. And so this is a great line of sight. So if we want to kind of narrow it down and do maybe 3 miles, it might be possible. This is his truck here. So anyway, that's the 3-mile point of view. But just to bring it back real quick.
Hey, do you know how far was it to that mountain range?
Oh, it's from where we were. Let me go back to Google Earth and we'll look at it real quick. Google Earth here. So I was standing here. But again, the problem is that you could never tell anybody, oh, I'm looking at the base of that mountain. I mean, it's just, how would you be able to determine it, even with the infrared? But let me see here. And again, mine's not as good as Jay Tolan's. Mine's a P900 that's been converted. So looking from here, and I was looking across and seeing the Sierra Nevada peaks over here. So you're talking, it depends. I mean, how am I seeing the highest peaks of the Sierra Nevadas? 170 miles, 150 miles, 153. If I'm just seeing this portion of the mountains, 106. But again, it's hard to determine what you're really seeing. And again, that wasn't the point of us going to the canal yesterday, so it wasn't even on my mind. But I could go back.
Just a happy accident, though. Wow, that's pretty awesome. And
yeah.
That shot was taken from ground level, so it's not like I don't know what the elevation was, but it's not like they can say, oh, well, it's because you were at the top of a mountain or something.
No. I mean, yeah, if you're talking about Holt here, come on, move. Let me clear this up. If you're talking about Holt, the elevation from that spot, where did I lose my... Here we go. The elevation from this spot is, listed as -2 feet, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. It's right next to that canal. So it's very, very, very low. Sea level or a little bit higher just because you're on the side of the road there. But again, beautiful observations that we made. But again, it was just kind of disappointing because our plan was to go to see that we did have line of sight. This way there wasn't any excuses of, oh, maybe there was a bush getting in the way. Because again, when you're talking about looking and we're seeing that bush in the way, you have big problems there. Because, if you remember the movie, at one point I say, hold it above your head. He holds it above his head. You see the light. I say, interesting. That's how they end the movie. But again, now that we look, could it have been as simple as we were going, our line of sight was over some of these trees or bushes, and it took him lifting that up to see it? We don't know. We wanted to go back and redo this test, but now we realize that there is no line of sight from 4 miles. We'll have to limit that down to 3 miles, which then reduces the drop, reduces the hump. So there's lots of these canals out here that we can go back and look. Here's another one. It's a little bit smaller, a little smaller here. Tons of canals in this area because this is the Sacramento River. I am showing everybody this, right? Okay, good. This is the Sacramento River, which comes off into all kinds of these little junctions. I want to show you something incredible, too. You just can't get good access here. Look at this spot here. Starting from right here, going this way, this canal right here, 10 miles. Can you believe that? Look at that. 10 miles straight shot. The problem is that there is bushes covering both sides, so it's not, you can't even get to this spot, really. But boats can go down here. It's completely free for, John, if you and I had a boat, we just jump in our boat and go down this canal. So there's a lot of possibilities right in this area where we can have an observation point from here, trying to observe a boat down at the other side of the canal. Again, I don't think that, let me see if I can drop down to a ground view. See, they don't even let you do ground view in there. Let me try over here, see if we can get any, it turns purple if you're allowed to drop yourself in there somewhere. Not seeing any spot. Let me go back here a little bit. Can we go down here near Arcade? That's another city over here. Usually my thing will let me drop, but let me see if we drop down here. But it's just, everything from Google Earth looks so easy. And then when you get out there and you actually observe it and you realize that, getting there is difficult. There's that canal there. You'd have to walk off the side of this road to get to that canal. And then there's trees on the sides the whole way down. Come on. So it's just not an easy vantage point. It looks easy on paper, it looks easy when you're saying, okay, we just drop over here and we've got this huge canal basically from this point here. This is a straight shot. So you're not, this is not a case where you say, oh, are we looking over bushes? The problem is, and the reason that we're doing the canal experiment is because, so right there is, 9.7 miles. The reason that we're doing the canal experiment is because we want to do these observations next to water, not above water, because water causes the kind of effects that we see when people look over long distances. You get the mirroring, you get the miraging, but the water is a great point of level, right? So what you really wish you could do is set up the observation from like the side of this canal and basically observe along the side of it, because it's very easy to get your position above sea level or above water level. It's very easy to measure that to this point and say, okay, now we're setting up a camera, say 5 feet higher than the road, and the road is 8 feet higher than the water, so we're at 13 feet exactly. It's kind of easy to do that, but you have to have access to all these spots. And if you're looking here, of course, all these trees and bushes are in the way. So we're still looking. If people, I wish more people would look in their own states for areas like this. It cannot be just this California river. Oops, let me swing this back so I know where I'm at. It can't just be here that we have canals like this. There's also the California Canal that runs down Highway 5. Let me see where I'm at here. Modesto, Stockton, Sacramento. Where's 5? Okay, so when you're on this 5 down here, let me just make sure I'm at the right spot. Nope, I got to be up here more. This is, okay, where is this? O'Neill Front Bay? Nope, sorry, not in the right spot. Too far north. Alameda. Where is the San Joaquin Reservoir? Oh, down here. Sorry. So when you're over here and then you've got this canal, I mean, this thing runs the length of California all the way down. But anywhere you go and try and draw a straight line, you end up at, so that right there, 1.32 miles. Not really enough to do any kind of observation. Here, you've got, another 1 point something miles. That's not even straight, 1.84. Now, I could be conspiratorial and say there's a reason why they don't ever run this canal 4, 5, 6, 7 miles in a row, or it can just be, well, they wound through California. There's 0.82 miles. So no matter where we go, that's why that canal position in Holt, California is unique, because it's a 3 mile pretty straight shot. All these ones are much shorter, see, 2.12. And you could get down towards the only longer canals I've seen is when you get down towards Mexico. But again, that's the canal that people cross when they cross the border. I don't think that that's where I want to be down doing observations. But,
Hey, is that canal mostly man-made, or do you know?
Yeah, I think they all pretty much are man-made as far as, well. And the other thing is, a lot of people have said, well, isn't that tidal? And that is true, but the tide basically goes up about a foot. And the reason it's tidal is because those things are, I don't know, I keep scrolling way up there. Holt, there we go. The reason it's tidal is actually all these areas are connected to the ocean through here. So when the tide comes into the San Francisco Bay, basically all these canals will kind of increase about a foot and decrease. But there's, if you look back, I don't know if I showed it good in my video, but let me see, go back over here. The water was not moving. Let me see here. Yeah, you can't really see. Oops, I didn't bring you over. Just real quick, just showing that this player, here we go. So, I mean, the water is completely still as I'm walking through here. It's not like the water's not running one way or the other. It's not filling, and you can actually go there at the times where there's not much of a actual change in the height of the water. And also, I don't know if it's in this video here, you can actually see every about mile there's a, also I've learned you have to zoom in and really wait to get clear view, but every mile or so there's a marker in the water that tells you how high the water is, and you can go online and pick up the exact amount at a certain time. So what level was the water at 2 p.m., whatever, you can figure all that out. So when we finally do this observation, hopefully we'll be able to get those heights for everybody. But pretty incredible when you zoom in. You can see how this road looks extremely straight, and then as you zoom in, the more kind of distance you cover, the more you can start to see that it isn't quite as straight as we thought. The bushes were much lower yesterday than they were the night that we did the observation, because we were more near the end of summer last time, and this time we were basically at the end of winter. We actually had high hopes, but again, we saw that bush, just to show you one more time here, that he's coming from behind that bush. And so you can't really tell. This is just weeds on the side of this canal. It looks pretty hard to tell that we're even on the canal, but here's the water next to us here. And I'm just on this road observing super long distance from where I'm at to where we can finally see the truck pull up is 3 miles. From where the truck started, when I can't see it, it's further back on this road, is about 4 miles. So anyway, I just wanted to show people that, again, we're trying to do these observations. I'm being a little bit smarter about it. In this case, for instance, we could have gathered a bunch of people. We could have gone in there at night. We could have tried to observe, and we wouldn't have even known that there wasn't line of sight. So we're trying to do these things a little bit smarter, going out, doing pre-tests, going out, doing observations just to make sure we have that line of sight first. And we got basically rudely told that we don't have a line of sight yesterday, at least for the 4 mile observation, which is the distance that we were trying to do. So just wanted to show everybody that happened yesterday. And thank you, Enrique, if you're listening, for joining me out there. I know it was early. I ended up having to walk about a total of 4 miles, which was not too much fun, with my camera, with my tripod, with a mirror. Oh, by the way, we were also doing a mirror observation very easily. I mean, it's not proof of any flat earth or anything. It's just we were basically, so he could see me, I would be reflecting the sun. Remember, I'm looking east here. We went early in the morning, so the sun was behind Enrique. Basically, if I pull this back, Google Earth, here we go. Transition. Okay. So basically I'm looking east from here. So basically the sun was rising behind Enrique, and I was standing at this far point with a 12-inch square mirror and was just flashing him, and he would be able to quickly, easily pick up exactly where I was. The problem is when we went back to we kept spacing it away. Basically he started at Cowpack Road, which is here. He started at Cowpack Road, and I would walk. I had to drive to, where's Cowpack? My bad. Cowpack's here. So then I had to drive to Andrade or something. What is it called? And what's the name of the street? Andretti or something? I don't know the name of the street. Well, basically here. So I drove here first. I got, climbed up. This is a very high hill. Again, these things are hard for people to see. This is way below this upper road. So I had to park here, get out, walk up this little hill here, get up here, and then we did some observations. He said, okay, I can easily see you. That we then stretched it back. I walked further this way on the road. The other great thing is last time we went, we were able to drive up on this road. This time, as I got to this part here, or was about to drive up there, the owner of this property came up behind me in a truck and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just trying to do a line of sight test with my camera. He did not give me permission to go up on this hill. So basically, I had to walk up this hill, and then I had to walk from here all the way down. Then we did another observation from here, walked past that house, went to here, then I went all the way down. So this was a total of 1.5 miles from where I parked, and then I had to walk back, of course. But then the problem is then we told him, where's Cowpack? Right there? Can't see. Yeah. Nope, that's where I parked. So then remember, Enrique was at Cowpack Road, which is here. And then we tried to get him to go. So then we knew we had line of sight for this 3 miles, and we tried to get him to go here. Now this is the bush that you're seeing. These bushes here are the ones blocking. So when I showed the video and said that he came from behind the bush, this road must turn. Basically, you have a pretty straight shot here, and then you've almost got a very slight, and again, this is what I've learned the hard way, is that when you're talking about long distances, the slightest little bit of road turn is huge when looking across those distances. Now, again, it could even have been this tree. How would I know which exact bush is covering him? But we knew that when he got back here, he could no longer see my mirror. And we were like, well, what's going on? Well, then, if you saw the video, obviously the video shows why. And I'll bring that up one last time. Here. There we go. You'll see why is because as I'm observing, there's actually bushes there that are blocking that 4 mile location. So anyway, I didn't want to explain that so long. Then you can see the truck appear here. But I just wanted to show that. And, like I said, we're trying to do these observations, kind of what I really want to do. I really want to go out and make some of these observations. And, I challenge Nat Geo and the Independent Investigations Group and all these groups that have all this money to go out and do this stuff. If the or the producers of the Behind the Curve, who made a hefty chunk of change, I'm sure, from their movie hitting Netflix, I would say reinvest some of that money and go and redo these experiments when you have the kind of money that it would take to do them proper. And even I'll admit that we didn't do it proper. Obviously, we didn't do it proper. There's probably a tree in the middle of our observation. So, but it's just when we have no budget, again, this is us going out with Enrique making panels out of 2x4s and a white piece of almost sheetrock. This is me going with my cheap laser, the $250, what's it called? Portable sun, which is the TN360. I think it's like 1600 lumen light that we call the portable sun. But you're talking about no budget here. You're talking about a bunch of people showing up in trucks and trying to drive up on this canal. But there's places across this country and across this world that must be better spots. And why isn't science out proving that the Earth is curved? Why aren't these guys going out and doing some sort of observation that would show clearly? They're just not doing it. Yet flat earthers are going out and doing laser tests and stuff. Go ahead.
Look at the instances where they have, like the big one was the that documentary or mockumentary show that was hosted by goodness, what's his name? Where they do the laser test over the water, and like
Stephen Hawking.
They totally fudged the test to get the exact amount of curvature you'd expect over the 4 miles or whatever with the helicopter. And, of course, they didn't factor in the observer's height above the ground level. And so the exact amount of curvature that they found was actually a little bit too much for the globe, right? So, that's what happens when they actually do these sorts of tests.
Right, or they go to the Salton Sea in the middle of the frickin' summer where it's in a bowl that is below sea level, where it's got 115-degree temperatures, where that water just remains sitting hot all day. They got there late, and then they tried to do this observation across the 10 miles, and even though somebody behind them is saying, hey, I can see the balloons, they're saying, no, you can't see them yet because of the curvature of the Earth. It's like, what? And then finally, we see it above the line. But again, that's the problem with looking across water, and the worst thing that you can do is go to any body of water when it's hot outside, because that's when you've got the biggest differential between the air temperature and the water temperature, and you get all that wavy garbage. And you know what? I don't disagree. In fact, when I talk about the let me go back here real quick. When I talk about doing these kind of observations from the Monterey Bay, one of the things that I fully admit, and this is why it's kind of an interesting test, is when you're doing these tests across the Monterey Bay, which I can't find now. Where am I? Thank you. When the Flat Reality Earth Explorers did it, it was a perfect day for it. Here's the problem, is if you go out on any old regular hot day during the summer and you try and observe the, if let's say we're looking across at the smokestacks again at Moss Landing, trying to observe somebody here on this beach, that because of the temperature differential, because it's so hot outside, you get that haze that hangs above this water. So I don't disagree. I don't doubt that there's some times where you cannot see a mirror observation from coast to coast, talking about from 14 miles apart. I don't disagree with that. The problem is there's sometimes when you can, and that is what disproves the globe. The fact that at times you can see a mirror observation from 14 miles when there's supposed to be a 30-foot hump of water, and you have to have line of sight to see a reflection on a mirror. I tell people, go do this in the front of your house. Take a mirror and try and flash somebody with it, and then at any point between you two, if that mirror becomes obstructed, even for a split second, you cannot see the reflection of the sun in that mirror. You must have a direct line of sight, which means if we can see it sometimes, how are we seeing through a 30-foot wall of water? 30 feet. That's ridiculous. A 3-story building.
Well, and what they'll say is that, refraction's a variable. Right. And so sometimes you can see it because the refraction index is conducive to that view. And sometimes you can't see it because the refraction index is not.
Right.
But the thing is, to me, it just seems all too convenient that, these observations, like the one that I always use is the 273-mile one from, I guess, the mountain range Bar des Écrins, if I'm saying that right. And, over 273 miles, they say that it's refraction, the conditions were right and the refraction index so that they could see that. But it just seems too convenient. And so, yeah, okay, they have to plan, what day they go based on these conditions. But then we have other observations of like the ones that you've made in the Chicago skyline over almost 60 miles. And, to say that refraction index will cause these objects to be visible over a curve of water, to me, it just seems too convenient. And like you said, if you cover up, if you obscure your line of sight towards reflected light, you can't see it.
Period.
And yeah, refraction is going to curve the light around so that, maybe it's visible, but you would just think that it would be skewed like a Fata Morgana or like a mirage would have distortions in it. And to me, it's pretty obvious that in a lot of these observations, we are actually looking at the reflected light of the object coming across the plane. There is no vertical descent. There's no hump of water. It would be obvious if there were, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And there's just no way that you're seeing, you can't bend that light, that mirror is not being bent up and allowing a line of sight for me to see. And this is how those heliographs work, that you have to have line of sight in order to get Morse code or whatever's being flashed at you. So that's why I think this is so important. And again, it's been done by other researchers, but I want to do it myself, and then I want to take it even further. The problem is, like I said, it's 2.5 miles away, 2.5 hours from me. Miss and I were talking, and we said maybe next time we'll have to find like a really cheap hotel and maybe go stay for 3 nights or 2 nights in Monterey, and then pick kind of the best day out of those days to do it, because it certainly sucks to pack up all your equipment. And again, we waited for a beautiful day here in Merced. There was no wind, great visibility. When I can see the mountains to my east, I know that it's really good visibility. We get in the car, we drive 2.5 hours to find out there's 30-mile winds coming off the damn ocean. So we got to figure out a way to get over there and do that observation, and we will be doing that shortly. So just letting everybody know what I've been up to as far as that. I wanted to show people, and I'll do a video on this separate. Let me see if I bring this up real quick. This is, John, I don't know if you saw this news story, or Iru, if you saw it. Iru, you still with us? Are we boring you? You're probably...
No, I am looking very carefully.
Okay.
But we have our equivalent here in the South America. We have 2 countries, Uruguay and Argentina, and I have the same, I can hear myself like a little echo.
How about now?
But if you want to, I can show the equivalent to these long observations.
Yeah, you want to? I'm going to wait till the end because I'll have you share your screen, because I also want you to discuss your ISS observation or your idea there. Let me just finish off with 2 other things.
I'm here.
You're good. You're not going anywhere. All right, good. And if you have echo, I don't think people are hearing echo. John, are you hearing echo on Eero?
I was at first, but I think it's cleared up now.
Okay. I just wanted to point this out, and I'll do a separate video on this, which will include part of my scaling and variance video. But John, did you see this one, that Mercury, not Venus, is the closest planet to Earth?
I had not seen that. Wow.
Pretty funny stuff. So yeah, and this is a great image of the surface of Mercury. You can believe that if you want, that they've got cameras over on Mercury. Yeah, but a team of scientists just demonstrated something that might shock you. Mercury, not Venus, is the closest planet to Earth on average. Basically, they're saying that if you look at all the orbits of each of the planets, that actually, and you can see this little chart down here, that Mercury is more often closest to Earth than Venus or Mars. I just thought it was funny. And it just goes to show again, and I'm going to include in my video about it, scaling and variance, and how really these are lights in the sky that they have estimated distances to. They had to assume that Venus was the same size of Earth. And then from there, they drew up this amazing mathematical construct that we now consider the universe. But really with scaling and variance, you can bring back any of those distances, bring them smaller, brings the sun closer, brings the moon closer, change the size of the moon so that it's equal to this. You can do a lot of things with scaling and variance, and all of the orbits and everything would stay the same. Again, they just want you to believe that they know the distances and that they know the sizes, but again, it's all a mathematical construct. So pretty funny. I wanted to show that. The other thing I wanted to show, and this is really cool, that let's see here, am I showing my screen? Yes. So everybody remembers the Earth.nullschool website. There's a new site called Flat Earth Plane. Let me show you how you get there first. If you go to flatearthplane.com, spelled exactly as you would think, flat earth and then plane.com, you get to this page, which at first I was a little confused. I said, what is this? And it says Flat Earth Plane Game. Says basically use arrows to fly, made with Unity. I just saw this today. I was like, what is going on here? So basically this plane takes off and you can now, oops, I don't want sound. I don't know how to turn off the sound. Anyway, you can kind of fly around the flat plane of the Earth. So you can't really crash either. I tried. You just hit the ground and kind of roll over. Anyway, I haven't played with this yet, but if you look at it, it is the flat plane of the Earth. But down here, if you go down a little bit, you'll see, click here for Earth.nullschool mirror. Sorry about that sound. I couldn't turn it off. But here is the Earth.nullschool map. And this is the one that we've been looking for forever, the one that was taken away from, so if we go to Earth.nullschool here, Earth.nullschool, just want to show you that that map is still down from that site. So this is earth.nullschool.net. When you go here and you click Earth, they used to have in this list of map projections, one of them was called the AE, which is the azimuthal equidistant. Again, I've done videos on that they've taken that away, yet they still have the Atlantis map, which is completely useless to anybody, the conic equidistant, they've got the equirectangular, they've got the globe, they've got the Patterson, they've got the, what's the S here? Stereographic, they've got the Waterman butterfly. So they've got a whole bunch of different map projections, but you'll notice that they no longer have the AE. They used to have the AE map. It used to be with the North Pole centered. They took that away, put the South Pole as the centered position. And you've seen my videos on it. I've asked questions of why they did that. Then next thing you know, the AE button didn't work. Then next thing you knew, the AE button is gone. So there's no way to get the AE map anymore on this website. However, if you go to the flatearthplane.com and click that thing, now you get basically it's the same website. It's just a mirror website, but we do have the AE map. So this is such a great tool, and I could talk forever about this, and I'll probably do a separate video just talking about it, because really it just shows the rhyme and reason when you get into like winds. So again, this is, look how perfect this is. This is the winds at aloft, and you can see by just putting your little marker here what the let me change that to miles per hour per second, knots, miles per hour. There you go. So now the problem with this is we're here at 70 HPA. Hopefully people can see that. If you go to this website, which is from Muck West, he lists here, because here we have height in HPA, right? So each HPA has a corresponding height or altitude. Here's the problem with this map is you'll see that it has, sorry, I'm losing my spot. Okay, so you'll see here it goes from 250. Well, let's look at this. It goes from 500 to 250 to 70. So you can't see the heights in between those, right? Well, let's go see what each of those is. So at 500 MB, you'll see feet here is about 20,804. 500 would be a little bit higher than that. Here it would be a little bit lower. So you're talking about maybe, let's say, 18,000 feet. So if you want to see what the winds are at 18,000 feet, you can go to this site. You can pull up the winds at 500. Is that correct? Is that what I said? Just check again. Yeah, 500. And now this is what the winds are doing at about 18,000 feet. So you can click on here and see what the winds are doing. This is at 18,000 feet or 500 HPA. The next one is 250. Okay, so now we can go back and see what is 250. Well, 250 is about 33,000 feet. Okay, which is, I'd say, normal flight. But again, we know that planes can fly at 30,000 feet, 28,000 feet, 35,000 feet, 38, 41, 43. Planes can fly that high. But again, we only can see what happens at this 33,985. And then if you go back again and see what 70 HPA is, if we go back to figure out what 70 is, 70 isn't even on this chart, and it would be higher than 50, about 53, 54,000 feet. Well, we know planes aren't really flying at that high, at least I don't think so. So basically what that leaves us is only knowing what the winds do at 250 HPA, which is about 33,000 feet. Again, we don't know what the winds are doing above that or below that, where planes could easily fly. So I've talked about this many times, but when you really start to figure out that even at 250 HPA, how fast some of these winds are flying, look at this, 205 mile per hour wind. That's how fast the winds the jet stream is. And isn't it convenient that if you look at Australia and look at this Sydney to Santiago flight? So, and every time I look, it's just maybe in a different spot. But remember, planes can get up there and they can navigate by knowing what these winds are going and at what speed. So, again, I'm not saying for sure, but planes leaving Sydney could fly in these winds, which are very high altitude or very high speed, 218 miles per hour, and get to exactly right here, which is Santiago, Chile. So, isn't it interesting that these winds make a lot of sense on the flat Earth, especially when you picture you've got the sun and moon that would be orbiting. Let me go up a little bit higher at 70. But you have, the sun and moon kind of coming this direction, clockwise, and you get these high speed winds, which even crazier. And I want to watch a video real quick, and then we will kind of talk about it. The other thing that you can do real quick, I'll just kind of show, is when you click, you get this little kind of green circle. And I think it's interesting that you can kind of even tell people to assume, like when we're talking, and I know, John, you and I have talked about this a lot, where we said, take a flat basketball court and each person standing on the basketball court has like an upside down glass above their head. Well, really, we all see in these little tiny circles, and they would be much smaller than even this circle, where that is your atmospheric dome. It is what we see through. And so when you have the sun coming around, then you can start to see where in this little person's dome that you might see the sun rise south of east, set south of west, but really the sun is just doing this above your head. And David Weiss has talked about, taking a big baking sheet or something and putting a little soapy water and blowing a bunch of bubbles throughout it and then moving a light around the top of it. And you would see the reflection differently in every single little dome. And of course, in order for the light to be right above your head, well, you'd need to be somewhere near the equator, right? It doesn't go right above my head. I'm over here in Northern California, so about here. So again, the sun would never be above my head in my personal atmospheric dome, which is exactly what I get. I can't ever see the sun above my head. The sun is always going to be south of me. And that's because as the sun comes through here, I would have a different view from my personal dome. So just pointing out,
right.
Go ahead.
And like if you're, say, at the equator on the equinox and the sun's overhead, the refraction index would be pretty close to zero. Like if you look at how refraction works, when that light's coming, 90 degrees from overhead through this little subjective lens of atmosphere that we all sort of walk around in. And so that's a good indicator of where the actual position of the sun is when it's actually overhead. But anything other than that, you've got this lensing effect that I totally agree. And I think it makes perfect sense as to, so like if we didn't have the atmosphere, then the sun and the stars and the celestial lights, they wouldn't, it appears to me that they wouldn't rise and set as we see them, in reality. And so, you do have perspective that's going on with the rising and setting of the stars and the sun. But it really seems to me that what the biggest part of the rising and setting of those lights is this personal atmospheric dome. And it doesn't even need, sure, you could do experiments or observations to see, exactly how large it is. And it's going to vary. Like it's very cloudy here where I am today. And so visibility is very low. So my personal atmospheric dome is going to be much smaller than someone that's, say, at a high altitude on a very clear day. But you still have the cumulative effect of the atmosphere at great distances that perturbs light. And so it makes perfect sense to me that, so many globe earthers like to say, well, the sun or the moon could never do this on a flat earth, which, that may be true if you totally ignore the atmosphere. Right. Because on the macro level, the atmosphere absolutely does behave as a lens. Not only does it magnify light, but it also refracts and perturbs light. And so I think this answers a lot of the questions and a lot of the perceived issues with observations of the celestial lights on flat Earth. So, yeah, I'm all about some personal atmospheric dome.
Yeah, and I think, when you bring up the globe, what people I mean, this just looks like a mess. We're now looking at the globe. We're not looking at the flat Earth projection anymore. We're not looking at the AE. The O is the orthographic or the globe view. But again, then you have to remember that the Earth is spinning this way, they tell us. But these winds are going faster than the Earth spins in the same direction. So they're outrunning the spinning Earth, meaning this Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour. Well, these winds, when they say that they're going, here, 114 miles per hour, 152 miles per hour, they're actually moving that much faster than the Earth spins. Because remember, if we're looking at it like this, the Earth is stationary, it's being carried along, all the atmosphere is being carried along. So it's just ridiculous that when you really look at this, and the globe just simply doesn't make sense. But if you flip that to the AE, all of a sudden things start to have some rhyme or reason, especially when you picture, look at the little winds here, and you've got the sun and moon operating right within that band from tropic to tropic. I think it's incredible. The other thing is that when you go and look at some flight maps, and so let me close this. So for instance, just looking at the amount of flights that we see in the south, that there's just none. We know that there's one flight that goes from Sydney to, Sydney to Santiago, and I think it goes every other day. I'm not even sure if it's every day. But there's so few flights in the south, and when I flip over and I see this map, and I start to realize that, a lot of the travel would take place up here, and why isn't there travel out in these parts? Why are we not crossing the South Pole, for instance, to fly from, New Zealand to Cape Cod? Or somewhere Cape Hope in South Africa. So
in fact, if you're trying to do that, you're gonna take longer time. I believe everybody see the video of the original pilot called Marcelo Diaz. He's an Argentina pilot, the Argentinian airline.
Right.
Who says the longest flight, one of the longest flight ever, is the transpolar route. It takes almost 19 hours from Argentina to Sydney, which is, supposedly it's going to take less time. No.
Right. No, and that's why, when I saw that flight, one of the flights that, the one that was supposed to go pole to pole that got canceled or whatever, that ended up being a hoax or something. But I knew that right away. I mean, I remember saying many times that flight wouldn't happen just because of the direction that they were trying to go. The other thing that I think is still, I don't know if I've pointed this out clear enough, that, again, at 500 HPA, we're talking about 18,000 feet. At 70 HPA, we're talking about 55,000 feet. So the only height that we can see with this map of winds is at 33,000 feet. But we don't know. That could mean that winds are faster at 41,000 feet. Could mean that winds are faster at 38,000 feet. Also, you can get winds that go the opposite way. So a lot of people say, well, then how does the flight go back? And by the way, the flight from Santiago, let me pull this down. The flight from Santiago to Sydney is about 14 or 15 hours instead of 12. So it's 3 hours longer to go this way. Well, again, if you change these different heights, let's say that I was able to select 200 HPA or 300 HPA. All of a sudden, we might see winds going in that direction, meaning that a flight going back could easily catch trade winds going the opposite direction by being either higher or lower. Again, we wouldn't be able to know that. But I want to show something interesting that maybe people have seen or haven't seen. Let me bring up this video. It's a short video. Hopefully I can get it up here. One second. This one. Oh, that's not right either. What did I do with it? Over here. All right, so we're going to watch this video real quickly. And which one do I want to have it on? This one. All right, so let's watch this video, and I'll turn it up so hopefully you guys can hear it. And let's watch it.
North, we know that this is a north. We tested it before. That when we put it to proximity of plasma, it shows twist to the right. It means it is in accordance with the theory or opinion.
So the name of this video is The Secrets of Our Electric Universe, but what he's talking about is when you put the north magnet, how the plasma that's inside this jar, which we know is above us, of course they only taught us about the 3 states of matter, they forgot to talk about the plasma, but you'll see what happens when you put a north magnet to it and the rotation that you get.
Now
watch what happens when he flips it.
When we put south side, it should twist the opposite way.
So you see the south
Yes,
magnet
it does.
causes the light to go the opposite way.
Inside, it should spin to the left.
So you'll see that we've got the spinning of the
It does.
plasma
Right.
above us that's controlled. Sorry, turn that down. That's controlled magnetically, which is what the electric universe. What a lot of flat earthers believe, that this is an electromagnetic place. He gets into towards the end of this video talking about the so-called craters and impact craters on different bodies like the moon, showing that is actually or can be considered an electric discharge. You get more closer results when you do that rather than when you try and explode a moving projectile at it. So you'll see here, this is a great little screenshot. Hopefully people are still seeing this. Yeah. Let me come back here. Yeah, so you'll see kind of the idea of what we're talking about when you look at this toroidal pattern. Also, I think something that's very interesting here, I've talked about before, people didn't understand what I meant when I said a bundt cake pan. This is a bundt cake pan. See the lines coming out here? You're talking about, it's almost like a donut, where all the lights that we see above us would be affected by these toroidal pattern magnetics and electric discharges. And he's showing it over here in the glass jar with the plasma. So this is incredible because when you start to realize that could be what's happening above us, and like I said, he goes through some of these craters. I don't know if you believe that there's craters on Mars. You can believe that if you want. But, here's crater impacts on the moon or whatever. But let me show you again when we go back to, where am I at here? This one here. And sorry, I don't think you're looking at my screen yet. There we go. Sorry about that. There we are. All right. So when we look at some things like this, again, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying it's possible that when we get up high and we see that there's crazy winds at this 70 and even at 10, which I don't even know how high that could be. Look at the winds here at 10, 194 miles per hour. So 10 HPA is like, I don't know. I wouldn't know because it's not in my conversion here. You'll see it ends at 100. So what is 10 HPA? 60,000 feet, I don't know, 80,000 feet, who knows? But what I'm trying to say is when we go back and look at this and you realize this is what's going on above us, now all of a sudden start imagining things like ring laser gyros, things like fiber optic gyros, things like the Foucault pendulum. Imagine that we've got this magnetic situation, this electromagnetic charge that's whipping winds around. Obviously, we've seen what happens with the North Pole magnet. Imagine that you've got a magnetic center like Mount Meru that is obviously drawing the needle of all compasses. So again, there is some sort of movement. And when you're talking about these high speeds up here, all of a sudden, for me, it starts to make sense when you picture Foucault's pendulums and them veering in certain directions. Obviously, as Iru stated, the Foucault pendulum, you can't just leave it hanging and it all of a sudden start working. You have to kind of swing it and get it going. But once it's going, if there is a tendency in certain areas, and they would also be separate when you're talking about the north and the south because they're going in opposite directions. So you've got this plasma field or this electrical discharge that could be going. And again, I'm saying could be, not saying it's the case. How would I know? I'm just giving people an alternative idea that makes more sense to me, that when you've got this kind of movement and this kind of speed, all of a sudden you have a pendulum swinging down here in North America that I wouldn't doubt that it tends in a certain direction. And when you swing it down here and you're a little bit further south, all of a sudden it swings in a different direction. And then you start looking at eclipses and the fact of the alias effect, right? The alias effect is the one where a pendulum will sometimes switch direction at an eclipse. How in the world is that even remotely possible in the globe model? It's not. It's not even remotely possible. Oh, it just holds in that same plane?
Yeah, it's just like a stop. And the only thing that make that pendulum move is the motor that they have up in the ceiling.
Right. And then they've got a magnet down below that needs to push it each time. Right.
Yeah,
and again,
stop the rotation.
Right. So again, it could definitely be anything like this, and to me, it just seems to make sense. Once they know that these winds are at a certain mile per hour, again, we don't know. We don't know what the magnetics are doing, but to me, it starts to make sense that we would have slight drifts in ring laser gyros or slight drifts in Foucault pendulums if we've got this kind of activity that is magnetically based above us. So when you start to picture the idea of an eclipse coming, and you've got the moon and the sun crossing, is that kind of an equalizing of the magnetic properties or of the electric universe above us? I know I've got to look way more into the electric universe. That's something Iru's done a ton of work in, and obviously Bob, that's his baby. So, I have to work more because I don't fully understand it, but I start to look at this and I say, man, this seems to make a lot more sense to me. Somebody just said we can hardly hear Iru. So Iru, just make sure you kind of speak up next time. But
yeah, I'm having trouble hearing him as well. But I just wanted to comment that if you take a disc magnet that something that looks like basically you'd find it in any speaker, a round magnet. The center pole is the north, and every point on the outside edge is the south pole. And it actually the rotation of that magnetic field is counter in the center compared to the outside. And so that makes a lot of sense when you juxtapose that over this AE projection. And if you make the assumption that perhaps the magnetic field of the Earth, rotational magnetic field, is what sort of triggers the rotation of the atmosphere, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. And when you look at things like the apparent precession of the ring laser gyro, but not in mechanical gyros, to me, that screams not spin of the Earth, but it is maybe perhaps something electromagnetic. So I think that this line of thought is definitely onto something. And it makes so much more sense than the globe. And, there's flat earthers out there that'll say, oh, if you use the AE projection, you're automatically and permanently a shill. But, my position on it is I think that it makes a lot of sense in many respects. I think one of the inherent problems with it is the fact that they've taken a globe Earth model and map that out onto an AE matrix.
Right.
And so you have the whole globe Earth model ingrained or in the code of that map. And so I think that's an issue. But if you can sort of look past that, it explains so much. I mean, it explains the time zones. It explains the centrality of Polaris. It explains circumnavigation. It explains the rising and setting of the sun and the stars. Just so many different things that frankly, I don't think that I could have ever become a flat earther were it not for the AE projection, because it just shows at least how things are possible on something other than a globe. And in that respect, the people that are out there trying to push the linear, like the Pac-Man projection, and saying that anybody who doesn't agree with me is a shill, to me, that's just, it's bad form. And I just don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to the AE projection, because it does such a good job of answering so much. And I think that if we understand what the issues with it are, and maybe with some more data from the far south, we can move this thing along and get a better model. But for now, if I had to choose one, I'd have to say that the AE projection is the one that I like the best, better than the Mercator or the Globe or any of them.
Right. Yeah, no, it definitely makes some more sense to me. And when you start looking at flights, one thing I'll show real quick, they also have a button on here called Space. But you click that, what it's showing is the auroras. And, I find it interesting that the auroras are, of course, on the outer edge. And if you kind of picture any kind of a atmospheric dome, or you can picture a glass dome if you want, with a sun and moon that are operating inside here. And I think it's interesting that, it looks like the auroras are happening here in the north. Where would the sun be right now? It's going to be over, what time is it? 2 something. So, over here, who knows if this is a result of the sun. And again, I don't know how accurate this is as far as where the auroras are, but certainly interesting that they happen on the outer edges. The other thing is, if we go back here, now I'm at the surface wind, so you don't see much wind going on at the surface. Of course, we can click somewhere and see, 35 mile per hour winds out here. Maybe if I would have clicked here on the day that I went to the beach, I would have seen 25 mile per hour winds and not gone. Who knows? But when you start looking at this whole picture.
In fact, I have here a really short video. Let me just...
Yeah.
Let me make my first share screen.
Okay, hold on. Let me make sure I have it set up here. I'm not sure if I go Skype. Okay. Yeah, you're sharing. Good.
Okay. So you can see here a video showing the north light and the south light, the aurora borealis light. You are seeing that?
Yep.
So when you go to electromagnetic model with plasma, you can replicate this in lab. And let me go forward. This is a guy that set up a model with a center electromagnetic source and with a magnet, and fill this, this kind of bowl with plasma. And when he electrify and turn it on, what you're gonna see is a dual plasma charge on the center and outside
Wow.
of the electromagnetic field. So this is, of course, it's a miniature, it's in the scale. We are not using all the gases that produce the different colors based on the electric field of that source. But here you can see clearly a model that produce all the conditions that we see in the real world. And if you start to compare this with the Tesla model of our world, you immediately recognize that this model is more sense than other. And the people must be remember that the gravity equations, it come from the Coulomb electromagnetic equations. So I mean, the gravity model is just a replica of the electromagnetic dynamics. So in fact, when you talk about, for example, the currents based on the movement of the sun, that is a electromagnetic source up in our sky. You can see here how the magnets push the water, and not only magnets, also electricity.
Wow.
So when you start looking into an EMA projection about the currents, the tides, you can clearly see that it has more sense when you start to compare with the real world based on the movement of the sun. And I have a full presentation that I never had the time to present about the electrical universe. But here I was editing an interview, and I came across with this. Just let me very quickly, because, for example, this is from the Thunderbolt project, guys. And just let me open this in the Explorer. For example, the water, when you induce electrical currents, you can clearly see how start moving. This is still water, and they turn on the electric field, and you can start see like the semantics,
Wow.
You can start see little currents. And of course, if you put more power in that electrical charge, you're gonna let me just
Pause that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I'm just going to flip back over here and show people, but stay right there because it gets interesting. But and Iru, whenever you want to give that presentation, you will do it on my channel, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay,
we can do it.
Let me move over here just so I can show people. So when we're talking about this, so now instead he was just talking about the currents of water. So let me change that over just so you can see how exactly the same it looked. Let's go to ocean, and now we're doing waves and currents. And oops, here we go, back to here. So look at these movements that are happening in the water below, and now I'm going to flip back over to...
And circular water shape.
Right. So let's flip back over and now look at these. Go ahead, Hiro.
And I put a play there.
Yep.
Of course, I mean, what I'm saying is that if you increase the charge of the electric source, you're going to have more currents. You're going to have even, overloaded power on the water, of course.
Lightning, yeah.
That is what happens sometimes with storms and things like that. And also something that really is really interesting is this property of the electricity and magnetism. Because when the people talks about, well, what is the power or the mechanism to have the planets up in the sky? Well, if you combine electricity and magnetism, you're gonna reach a certain point where you can levitate objects. Of course, you need a medium, you need a field,
Mhm.
and you need the ether, maybe.
Yep.
So I mean, I don't have this prepared for the presentation, but if you switch to electrical and magnetic model, you're gonna have all the answer to this reality. That is my opinion, of course.
Yeah, so
I'm stuck.
whenever you're ready to do that presentation, let me know, and we'll get on a live stream, and I would love to do it. So that sounds great. All right, let me flip back over to here. So again, this is why we're saying that the AE map, this idea makes a lot of sense to us, and there's a lot of things right about it, or a lot of things that make sense to a lot of us, and especially when you start adding in magnetics, plasma, and the electromagnetic nature of it all. I think it helps explain so much. The other thing, and I'll just show this one thing before. So when we were looking at this, live flight tracker, again, there's not a lot of planes flying in the south, and if they're down there, supposedly they've fallen off of radar. But there is a ton in the north, right? We know that there's a ton here. So when you see flights, let me get up here a little bit. Hopefully I'm showing this yet. So when we get up here and we see flights like this one here, which is going from Montreal to Shanghai. Let me see if I can bring up the how do I bring up the route? Okay, that's not right. This route has it going up this way. What is going on? I've never seen that before. Don't think that's the route, but you know what? It could be. What I was trying to show, let me go back and see another flight up there in that region. Okay, this flight here, for instance. So Paris to San Francisco. So we've all seen, these kind of, let me put the route on there. Okay, so this flight path that leaves Paris goes up through Greenland and then drops down to San Francisco, San Francisco. So again, it just makes so much more sense when you pull that back and you look at this map. So let me go back to air, surface, and all of a sudden, when you're talking about a plane going from here, Paris, flying to San Francisco, what do you know? The direct line of flight is exactly what the AE map would show. So again, you could believe that that we're on a globe and that planes are actually flying these huge, kind of arcs to get from here to here. But again, when you spin that into a flat Earth model, all of a sudden, all the plane flights are just direct flights. So San Francisco is about here. So you're talking about the plane leaving here, going directly across the southern part of Greenland and right to San Francisco. So again, when you pull up this live flight tracker and you look at these routes, again, this is the exact route that you would see on a flat Earth map. So it's certainly interesting, and you can look at all kinds of flights. Did I look at this one here? All right. So
Can you share your screen with us on the Skype?
Sorry, I'm a loser. Hold on,
No
let
problem.
me share screen, and here. Sorry about that. Now you got it?
I was going to say something, but usually it's just me who can't see it and everybody else can. So.
No, once I show somebody else's screen, I have to remember to share mine again. So it's certainly interesting when you look at flights like this one. This is a Honolulu to Tokyo flight. And this just takes more people researching this. I can't research this all myself. I'm not even smart enough to do that. But when I start to look at some of these flights and I watch the track that they're taking, so we're looking here at the track. Hold on, I am showing this right? Yeah. So we're looking at the tracking of this plane, and all I noticed is as this plane is flying, it's constantly adjusting to the south. So you'll see it flying straight, and then you'll see it take drastic turns. Here, it's going at 208 degrees. Remember, directly east would be 270, but this is now turned to 208. As you keep going, the plane flips again. It's going 220. It's constantly adjusting, and it only adjusts like once to the north here by going to 341, but the plane constantly adjusts to the south, adjust to the south, adjust to the south, then it disappears there at the end. It's just weird to me, and you can find any flights like this, and then when, again, you pull them up on this map and you start to realize what that plane is flying. So it's going from Hawaii, which I believe is here, and again, you would think, it's going directly east, but that plane would constantly have to adjust south, adjust south, adjust south until it got to Tokyo. So to me, it just seems like when I'm looking at all these plane flights, and this is just a random one, you can go to any flight that you want and start playing with it. Look at some of these flights from anywhere that you want. Usually just clear out this search. This is Flight Radar 24, by the way, is the site that I'm using. And it just certainly is interesting when you look at these flights and their paths. and then you can go to any flight and actually pull up its exact track. So you just pull up this. So this is a Singapore to Los Angeles. Again, go down here and hit route, so you can see the entire route. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I don't know what it's doing that for. So you can see this route that it's taking. But again, all you need to do is, and it actually goes a little further here. So you see this route, and then you flip back over to the map, and you can see why that route is the case. So if it's going from LA to Singapore, over here we've got it going from LA, which is going to be, oops, I didn't mean to adjust that map, sorry, from here to Singapore. And you can start to see that straight line flight on every flight. And then you can actually go down here and hit, if you want to hit more flights, sometimes you can get, where's it at? Data source. Sometimes you can get more flights. I don't remember how you click it. Anyway, you can see more flights of the exact same, and then you can play them back. Oh, I think you go down here. Source, nope. I don't remember where it is. Usually you can click, I'll remember how to do it eventually. Usually you can click somewhere in here and you can see more flights, or you can just pull up the flights that leave Los Angeles, for instance. Look at all those flights and then find the one that you want. So here's an Auckland. So again, you just bring up this flight here. Hello. Auckland flight. And usually you can, type in the whatever the name or the code is. So this 877W, just search for that. So I think this is a great site to, see a lot of these flights. Everything's kind of lagging here. 877W. I don't know why I'm not able to bring up that flight. Anyway, it'll take me a few minutes to do that. But anyway, you can just check out some of those flights yourself and really watch them, and then you can hit the track button and go back to any flight within the last, 30 days, I think. And I do have an account here. I'm not sure. This is not the free account that I'm using. It is an account that you have to pay for. But it's really helpful, and you can actually see how many flights. Look, this is just the flights coming in and out of LA that were there. Oh, that was pretty cool.
I post you on the chat a picture of a flight to Johannesburg to Sydney, and if you read the first paragraph, it says it's take an epic 20 hours, and I check online and supposedly it's only take 12 hours.
Oh wow!
I don't know why there are these, contradictions.
Right. Yeah, and that's certainly a long distance. And again, I've always said that, a plane going from New Zealand to Johannesburg should fly right across the South Pole. It's the shortest route. But again, no flights go there, which would make sense when you're talking about a flat Earth map, because let me go back there real quick. When you pull that to the flat Earth map, all of a sudden you can see why there's no flights that go across the South Pole, because you wouldn't go anywhere. You just start going south, and you are going to run into the hugely ice-populated Antarctica. Again, I've seen people, I've mentioned it a million times, the guy who has the record for circumnavigation, so watch this, because it certainly isn't circumnavigation. He left North Carolina, he flew to somewhere in Argentina, I believe, flew down to Brazil, and then he flew to the 90-degree mark, so-called, turned around and went back to Brazil, then flew from Brazil to New Zealand, New Zealand to Alaska, Alaska around the North Pole, back down to North Carolina, and he got the record for the fastest plane circumnavigation of the Earth north-south. So again, when you look at this and you realize, well, that's not circumnavigation, not if he went here and came back. And again, you can flip that to a globe if you want. Here's the globe, and imagine that somebody did that. They flew from here to here, they flew to the South Pole, then went back to Brazil, and then went over to here, and then up to here, went around to here, and came home and said, this is... So if the Earth was really a globe, there's no possible way that that person would ever be given the record for circumnavigation. It just doesn't make any sense. He didn't circumnavigate. How could it be circumnavigation if you flew from here to here and back, and then went this way, and here, and then... No, you would have to go circumnavigation, fly over this way. But he didn't do that, and he still has the record, and you can look that up. That's ZQ Pilot on Facebook. You'll also notice that he dropped off the map completely. He had a whole Facebook page where he talked to everybody, made comments, and then again, just search, what did I call it? Easy Pilot? I forgot what it's called. AQ Pilot? Whatever it is. And ZQ Pilot, thank you. ZQ Pilot Facebook, just to show you what I'm talking about. So again, if you go to that ZQ Pilot Facebook circumnavigation world record of here we go, here's the thing. You'll notice that his last post was January 23rd, 2015, after he was supposed to do this route, the white line. He was supposed to fly, like I said, from here to here, down across the sun. But no, he didn't. He flew here, then he flew back. See the red line doubled? He flew back, then went this way, then went up, and he has the record. And you see a lot of people's comments in here. Dead silent, no more updates, no media coverage. People asking, look at this, flat earth, good heavens, this threat is a bloodbath. Yeah, because the guy just disappeared. He stopped communicating with all these people that had been following him for all this time. Not now, please. So you'll see all these posts of what he's doing and what he's seeing, where he's going and everything. Here's my path. This is what I'm going to do. He didn't do it. He got the record and disappeared completely. Look it up, ZQ Pilot. And yeah, he's gone. And the Spider Track site that I followed when he did that mission is gone. You can't get there anymore without having an account. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. That's why I think these live flight trackers. Where's this plane coming from?
That's another one of those data points that really added together. There's so many little things that add together to really align to an AE layout. And that's why I really still like the AE projection in spite of all the flack that it's gotten over the couple of years. But it really makes sense that, okay, you're not able to circumnavigate Antarctica if it goes all the way around the outside edge. And it really aligns to that when you see these sort of shady routes of southern circumnavigation. And you also have accounts of, like Captain Cook and the mariners in the 17 and 1800s trying to circumnavigate east to west around the far southern latitudes and not being able to make their way around of it. It all stacks up to really lean heavily towards an AE projection where the southern, hemisphere or semi-plane is far larger around than the north. And, it's just another one of those things that we can tally that up to points scored for the AE layout.
Yeah, and again, John and I have talked about it a lot, that there's no cruises that go from New Zealand or Australia to South America. If they do, they all head up around here, hit some of these islands, come down, and then end up over here, and it takes forever, 100 and something day cruises or something. But there is no direct line of cruises that go here, at least that I've found. The other thing that there's not is we've discussed the undersea cables, the internet cables, which, again, if you're looking at a flat Earth kind of map, did I lose my... Oh, shoot, I lost my site. So anyway, what was that called again? Flat plane. Let me bring that up one more time, just so I don't lose it. Flat plane. Oops. Was it flat Earth plane? No, that's what it was. Flat Earth plane.
And in fact, the globe Earth has some issue to attempt, which is the rotation of the Earth when the plane took off and landed.
When what?
I mean, we can talk all day long about the flights and the hours and the routes and blah, blah, blah. But the real thing is that you must take into consideration the rotation of the Earth in the globe model, because the viscosity of the Earth is not going to, push all the plane and the helicopters. And in fact, all the patents for, construct aeroplanes is based on the assumption of the flat and stationary Earth.
Right.
But in their model, that is not what supposedly is going on. So
no, and so when you look at some of these, it makes sense to me why there would be no undersea cables these long distances, because they're actually longer distances than we're taught. And again, like you said, we can talk forever about that. But once you take into account the rotation of the Earth and everything else, it just becomes such a problem rectifying it. But again, it just makes sense to me. On a globe, remember, these distances would be shorter. This is a smaller distance because you're on a globe. Let's flip over to here, and we'll go to a globe projection. Here we go. So when you're talking about the globe, you're talking about these areas down here that are the small end of the globe. They should be quicker travels, just like the North, when you're talking about these little sections here. But they're not. And so on a globe where this distance, I think, from Sydney to here, to Santiago, is on the globe about 7,000 miles, is what they say. But again, if they did try and run some undersea cables, and again, what we're saying is true, that this is the proper, or could be close to the proper, then all of a sudden you see why these sea cables would not be able to reach in 7,000 miles. But again, I wouldn't doubt that this distance could be 10,000 miles, and planes would still be able to easily do it. Nobody would even know. Because why? Well, because when we put up the speeds of the high altitude winds, all of a sudden we see that these things are zooming at not 334 kilometers an hour, 208 miles per hour. So again, that means that either the plane, because when you do the math and you do, basically it's flying 11 and a half hours, actually 12 hours. So if you do 12 hours 7,000 miles divided by the 12 hours, you get the plane going 583. So either the plane is really going 383 and it's riding this 208 mile per hour wind to equal 583 to get there 7,000 miles in that amount of time, or you can add that 208 to the 583. So now all of a sudden you're going 583 plus 208 miles per hour. That equals 791. Remember that if that plane is doing that, it's not even breaking the sound barrier because it's traveling in the moving winds. Take that 791, times that by 12 hours, and all of a sudden that plane could be going 9,496 miles in the same amount of time. Nobody would have a clue, and that's what I think is going on. I think that the southern oceans are far more expansive than we're told. I think that, me personally, again, I'm just the only one saying this, but I think the equator is far smaller than we're told. I don't think the equator is at all 25,000 miles. In my estimation, it's probably closer to 20. So again, and then all of a sudden, everything else on the outside starts making sense. You can still make all the flights within the United States in the same amount of time, U.S. to London or London to Russia. All those flights would remain the same. The only thing that would get drastically larger as we get to the outside is those southern flights, which are the ones that take forever, but also could be flying in these winds. And again, I just have to mention it again, this is the only way we know these winds is at 250 HPA, which is 33,000 feet. What are the winds doing at 35,000 feet, 40,000 feet? Hey, the less atmosphere, things can go faster too. Think about baseball. I don't know if you guys are baseball fans. I know John's not. But
not one bit.
All right, well,
I like to play it. Just can't stand to watch it much, but I enjoy playing it.
All right,
I guess.
well, if you wanted to play it, you would want to play it in Colorado, because obviously in Colorado, with the air being so much thinner, balls go significantly further. So that's why teams like the Colorado Rockies score significantly more runs than any other baseball team, because they play their home games in Denver, which is a mile high. So that's only a mile high that baseballs go significantly further because there's less atmosphere. So I keep drawing that higher and say, well, what happens at 5 miles high? What would happen to a baseball? What would happen to an airplane as you get higher? So then you start thinking, well, could these planes at 40,000 feet, 41,000 feet, again, we can't tell, be riding winds of 300 miles per hour, 400 miles per hour? I wouldn't know. I don't know the speed of the winds at that height. I only know what they give me on this website. So just bringing up this website again because I think it's great that it's back. I'll do a separate video on it. flatearthplane.com. I don't know whose website it is. I think I asked Bob who it was, and he didn't know either. So to whoever it is, thank you for doing this. I know Tesla's Apple tried a few times, and we could never get it synced up with real-time wind speeds. And according to everything I've seen on this, this is updated. I think it says it updates every 3 hours or something like that. And, once they can predict these winds and they kind of have an idea of where they're going, all of plane flight is done by riding these winds. That's what they do. They get up in these winds. That's why I've shown before when you're looking at live flight trackers that you could look at all the flights. You would think that a flight leaving Sydney flying to Santiago, Chile would always take the same path. Why would it not? But if you bring up those flights, and I don't know the name of the flight off the hand, or else I'd bring it up and show you. But every time that plane flies, it changes its location, meaning it's flying from Sydney going to Santiago, but it will pass anywhere from here all the way up, and I've seen it even higher than New Zealand. So this plane that's leaving, the reason it's going in different areas is because it's catching the current jet stream. Wherever that jet stream is, it's all programmed. You know that about planes. They can fly themselves. They do need a pilot to land and to take off, but for the most part, when they're up in the air, they're being controlled by computer data systems. So anyway, again, you can go to Mick West's site if you want to just search for converting MB pressure to altitude if you want to see that. And then again, go to flatearthplane.com if you want to play the little fly around the flat earth thing. Or you can also check this out. I did verify by looking back and forth at Earth.nullschool and this one that it is the same. So I'm assuming that the AE map is up to date and current with the speeds of the winds and things at different altitudes. And so anyway, I just wanted to point that out. What else did I have? Iru, do you want to talk about the ISS like you were asking? Because I thought it was a great question. And I got to run to the restroom. So do you want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need no break. No.
It'd be 2 seconds. I'll be right back. But Iru, do you want to share your screen or you just want to kind of mention it?
No. I need to share my screen.
Okay, let me do that. Put it on Skype here. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Oops. Why do I still have this picture up? Hold on. I'm not ready. Okay, now we go. You're on.
Okay. And I hope I can explain myself. Sean, please help me to illustrate my point. But it's in relation with the flights and how it's possible that the mass of the Earth supposedly carry on at the same time with the atmosphere and the rotation of the Earth, all the weight that supposedly have planes or helicopters or things like that. And this is an experiment that was in the ISS, and supposedly these guys are trying to show us that they are completely still and the ISS is moving forward in this supposedly orbit around the Earth, in this kind of free fall continuously. So what they're going to trying to show is that, like, for example, this guy is not moving backwards. It's the ISS completely that is going forward. And this guy is just floating freely inside of the ISS. And I start thinking about, like, this is an enclosed system, like when you are in the car, for example. So why it's that the mass of the Earth inside the ISS is not moving, is moving with the ISS, but it's not hard enough to push the astronauts all together. But supposedly here on Earth, which is some kind of enclosed system based on the atmosphere has the capability to, move all the planes and helicopters and these heavy vehicles all together. I don't know if I explain myself good.
Yeah, so and I definitely understand what you mean about the atmosphere supposedly carrying, say, airplanes with it. So what the Globers claim in response to the fact that westbound flight from, say, Florida to California is sometimes very similar, if not identical in duration, to the return flight. And of course, if the Earth were spinning towards the east and all of the destinations on the face of the Earth were constantly racing east faster than the speed of sound, you would expect to see westbound flights as much, much shorter in duration than the respective return flight to the east, because this is just a basic immutable law of physics that if you've got two objects that are racing towards one another, they are obviously and absolutely going to meet in the middle much more quickly than two similar objects racing against one another in the same direction. And so, back to the point, the Globers then must argue that this is because the atmosphere is always synchronized to the ground beneath it. And that's regardless of the altitude, it's regardless of the latitude, regardless of changes in latitude. The atmosphere somehow magically knows exactly what the ground beneath it is doing and remains in lockstep with that ground beneath it perpetually. Although this, of course, negates any sort of winds, right? So a wind is going to be a difference in the speed of the air compared to the speed of the spin of the Earth. So, I mean, right away, the fact that we have winds refutes that point. But so what they claim is that the atmosphere magically stays in lockstep synchronization with the ground beneath, and therefore airplanes are bound to the frame of reference of the ground by way of the atmosphere. Now, and I'm not sure that the point where I'm just a little lost on your point, Iru, is what are you translating about that to the ISS? I'm missing the point, I think.
No, what I'm trying to say is, maybe because in English for me it's a little difficult, but in the astronomy, let me just show this. There is an anomaly called ARA, ARA, which is the anomaly of the atmospheric revolution. Because supposedly if the Earth is rotating and the mass of the air inside is rotating with the Earth, we should have winds, really, really strong winds, around 1,000 kilometers per hour. Because, let me just explain better. Brian Mullin, I believe I have it somewhere around here. Let me just trying to find that here.
Yeah, there he is, Brian Mullen.
Yeah, and let me just reopen this file because it was tilted.
You broke it.
Yeah. No, it's because I'm rendering a job here, so it's a little difficult. Okay, I'm here again, and let me just scroll down to that slide. It's around.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. I think also, it was one of Owen Benjamin's big problems too, when he kept saying if we took a balloon and we started going up in our atmosphere, the globe belief is that the atmosphere is being carried along with the Earth. But at what point does that stop happening? We know that the atmosphere significantly decreases as we go up. So shouldn't at a certain point the Earth start flying by as you've gotten outside of the pull of the atmosphere? But of course that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well,
in fact,
and you would hypothetically retain some of that momentum. Okay. However, when you're talking about trajectories, curved paths of travel, there is no sort of medium or mechanism to keep, say a spaceship or whatever, or a high altitude weather balloon in a sort of rotational frame of reference. And that's really, I think, the biggest problem with it. But yeah, I'm familiar with the argument that Owen Benjamin raised, and I think he's definitely onto something. But I guess my question would be is do high altitude, helium or weather balloons or whatever, do they get to a high enough level to I guess they do get outside of any sort of thick atmosphere to speak of, but still the Kármán line, the point where the atmosphere switches to space. I know they've just pushed that out to over 300,000 miles. So, they're saying now that the moon is technically within the Earth's atmosphere, which is ridiculous. I'm actually bringing that point up in the video that I'm working on right now. But so anyway, got off on a sidetrack there. But yeah, Owen Benjamin is he's right. And another thing that I was thinking about in relation to this, then shouldn't anything inside of like a large vacuum chamber, shouldn't that be I guess you could say excused from the atmosphere pulling it along? So couldn't we do some tests in a vacuum chamber to answer these questions conclusively?
Yeah, you're talking about like dropping something in a vacuum chamber, it should hit the wall?
Or, well, not necessarily dropping it, but maybe, tossing it from east to west, tossing it from north to south, and seeing what the difference is. Because, they claim for long-distance sniper shots that the Coriolis force is factored in. And what's so laughable about it is that in the northern hemisphere, they say that the Coriolis force always, no matter which direction you fire, causes the bullet to basically tend to the right. Now, what I believe is actually going on in that instance is you've got the rifling of the round. So a bullet is actually like a little gyroscope. It's spinning at really high velocities when it comes out of the chamber, when it comes out of the gun. Right. And so if you're in the northern hemisphere, most barrels of rifles and even like rifled pistol rounds or whatever, they're always going to be oriented to spin towards the right, so like clockwise. And I actually called around a bunch of gun manufacturers to find out, how difficult is it to get, what they call a left-handed barrel. But what it is just the rifling is reversed so that the bullet will spin counterclockwise. But so anyway, what it appears is going on, because think about this. If the Coriolis force is causing rifled rounds to always tend to the right, how is that working on a ball Earth at all? Like, I could understand if you're standing at the North Pole, the bullet always tending one direction due to the spin of the Earth. But if you're firing directly, say, due west or due east, it doesn't make any sense to me. There is no sort of geometric way that you can show how this would work, that the bullet is traveling to the right because of the Coriolis force. And what it really does appear is it is just merely the apparent drift due to the rifling. The gyroscopic drift has nothing to do with the Coriolis force. But anyway, that's the sort of illogic that we deal with all the time when trying to argue against globe earthers about this. I mean, there's no debate to be had, I don't think. If you're firing a gun to the west, the Coriolis force absolutely should not cause that bullet to tend to do anything except for perhaps drastically change its altitude because of the curvature or whatever. But for it to drift to the right because of Coriolis force, no, that really seems to me to be the rifling of the round. And when it comes to the atmosphere, if you're in a vacuum chamber, you should be able to toss a ball. Say to the west, once to the east, once to the south, once to the north. And if the Earth were spinning, as they say, and there's no atmosphere that you can use to apologize for this, you would expect to see drastic apparent changes in the direction of travel of whatever object you're tossing. Doesn't have to be anything special. And I would predict that you would see none. You wouldn't see any drift due to this spin of the Earth because, Earth's not spinning.
Right. Well, I'll let Iru get back to his point, but one of the things I heard recently, and this kind of is the same thing, where they were trying to argue against relative density as being equal to gravity. And one of the things they said was, did you know if you drop a container with a mixture of, say, oil and water in it, that in free fall, that the oil and water will not separate? So they were saying that relative density can't be true because you drop this box and the oil and water will not separate out in free fall. Which I thought was hilarious because I said, well, isn't the Earth in free fall around the sun? So how is anything separated out? If I have a container here on the ground with put some oil and water in, it's going to separate out. But aren't we all together falling with our atmosphere, falling around the sun? So it's the kind of same thing that you were talking about with the ISS. Is the ISS being carried with everything in it in free fall around the Earth? Is that kind of what you're saying, Iru?
Yeah, what I'm trying to illustrate is this. For example, when you go to experimental, with the experiments even in universities, they show that if you have a non-rotation model and I mean stationary models and rotating models, what is going to happen when you trying to replicate our weather in the sky, like hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. The only way that you can have the similarities is based on the stationary models, not on rotational model. On rotational model, of course, everything is going to go to the center, because if you have an object that rotates, all the gases, because they don't have the viscosity of the Earth, there are gases.
Right.
Is going to follow the rotation of the object. So if you take paying attention, even in the stationary models, they compare with the real behavior of the weather. So when you start, for example, trying to replicate those things in a rotation model, the column of the gas is going to start to spread and rip apart, and we see rockets go up into the sky, forming like a stationary column of smoke. We have a lot of steam column seen from a plane, and there are like the Earth is not rotating.
Right.
That is the first thing. The second thing is
let alone it would have to be rotating at different speeds. Because
exactly.
the further you get up, the slower that would be, right?
Exactly. So then, if you want to do the math for this, I just take a little part of the complete video from Brian Mullin trying to himself explain this, and let's take a listen.
Oh, we don't got audio.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Let me.
You just translate what he's saying. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I believe he's made better job than me. Let me just stop sharing and reshare with audio. And supposedly now I am sharing again with audio. Just let me.
I'll let you know.
Let me.
I don't understand how this could work.
All good.
With an Earth that's rotating. How does that work? There's just too much going on. It doesn't really make sense for all this movement to be happening, but us to go outside and experience this relatively stationary air that we experience every day.
So this is what it's caught my attention. I mean, it's what you said. If supposedly the atmosphere rotates everything with the Earth, because it's a sphere, you have different altitude, and the different altitude you're going to have to take into consideration more speed based on the altitude, because you need to follow all together. It's not the same at the ground level than 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers. To move all together, the most high you go, you need more speed. And that is why in astronomy they talk about the anomaly for revolution of the atmosphere, because nobody see that kind of behavior on the atmosphere. In fact, like you mentioned in your video of quotations, everything is like the Earth is stationary.
Right.
So when you start to put all these together, something that for me, for example, when you go to, based on what Sean says about the projectiles or the bullets, nobody take into account or the rotation or the curve of the Earth. And in fact, when you go, for example, to technical document based on ballistic missile, they again assume for compute the trajectory based on non-rotating Earth. When you go to planes, the same thing is always non-rotation Earth. When you go to helicopters, the same. When it's really like the Earth is completely stationary. And what I'm trying to illustrate is that if we have, and this is just a rough model, but what I'm trying to say is, if supposedly we have this, Earth and the plane rotate together at the ground level, okay, that is fine. But immediately when the plane starts to rise up, I can take you, if you're trying to convince me that it's going to have a little inertia at the beginning, okay? So, for example, if the plane is on the ground and the Earth is rotate, when the plane or the helicopter start rising up, it could be has a little of inertia, but then it has independence of the ground beneath.
Immediately, yeah.
Because the air, the viscosity of the air is impossible to move tons of metal.
Right, and especially an aircraft that's designed to be aerodynamic.
Exactly. So that is, and what I'm trying to illustrate with the ISS model is like, supposedly, they tell us that the air in our planet has the power to move, tons of metal of the aircraft, but in the ISS, the air inside the ISS can move the astronaut.
And, I suppose they would argue this even if the wind were blowing in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that is where I'm start to, when I see this, I mean, it's like inside here, the Earth, it doesn't have the power to move even a human being, which, weight around, I don't know, 60, 70 kilos. And supposedly on the Earth, the viscosity is capable to take over a plane and move all together. I don't know if that's
I think that's it's a great point, and something that I've sort of thought about, and I hope we can come up with some experiments to prove this conclusively, just to end this part of the discussion. But so like if you take a helicopter and hover it for a couple minutes or whatever, and then just accelerate it a little bit to the west. In order to stop and continue hovering again or resume hovering, it seems to me that you would have to re-accelerate back to the east. You couldn't just, stop, and I guess put on the brakes is probably not a good vernacular for a helicopter, but you couldn't just put on the brakes and expect to stop and return to the frame of reference with the Earth. I don't care what the wind's doing, whatever the atmosphere is doing. It seems like you would have to really...
Isn't your inertia gone?
Calculations and right.
Exactly.
Yeah, they claim, it's so absurd, but they claim that no matter what, you're always forever going to be synchronized to reference with the rotation of the Earth.
But
and that doesn't matter.
You cannot prove it. I mean, when you go to real scaling models, like I showed here in a rotational tank and stationary tanks, if you have a rotational model, all the liquid, the gases, the fluids is going to follow that rotation. You don't want to have independent currents going right and another going left and other stationary. It's impossible to replicate that. And this is also a flat circular surface, trying to emulate or simulate in a spherical model. I mean,
right? It's never going to work.
That just adds all sorts of problems to it when you wrap that body of water around a ball, which I just don't see any possible way that you could replicate that in a lab to do tests. Perhaps you could use a computer program to do some sort of experiments, but that doesn't amount to much because the computer program is going to do whatever you tell it. And if you put in parameters for a ball Earth, then what does that prove?
You can put in the parameters that gravity pulls everything to the center of that sphere, and then all of a sudden you can show me on a computer, see, this is how water hangs upside down, this is how the ships hang upside down. That's not the point. We're saying prove that everything pulls to the center before you go. And if you presuppose all those things, then you can come up with a myriad of beautiful models that can match observations, but you've pre-programmed it with a bunch of presuppositions that nobody can prove.
And in fact, for example, when you go to scale, this is a model with a nanogas. That is the name of the substance of the fluid, and you put a neodymium magnet in the middle. Look, I don't know if the quality allows to everybody see this, but look how the fluid reacts if they have electromagnetic source in the middle. You're going to have two spins. One is going to the counterclockwise, and the other is going to be on the clockwise spin.
Yeah.
So if you have in the middle of our plane of existence, the sun, which is an electric-magnetic force moving, of course you're going to have weather patterns going in opposite direction.
North and south of that sun. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the only this is my opinion, that is why it's so important the mechanical gyroscope and the Sagnac base gyroscope, because for me the only way to bend light, quote unquote, is only via electromagnetic fields. The only it's like the only way to bend light is only with magnets. And you can see clearly here, for example, when you approach a magnet to a screen, or you approach a magnet, let me just show really quickly what I'm trying to illustrate. I'm trying to open here. Give me just 1 second. Because after all, when we see those experiments, like the Dan dimension show us based on the these neon, xenon gases being close to electromagnetic source and start immediately ignite. I trying to find that particular video. Give me 1 second. I have it here. Yeah, I remember what it is. It's here. Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about Dan Dimension, how he shows all the videos with all the atmospheric gases and how they're lit up.
Yes, I mean, this kind of models. When you approach a magnet to electrical fields, to a light, you can bend it. But in fact, and this is my opinion, always for you project a light, for you be able to see light, you need a medium, you need a gas. If you take out the gas of your lamps, you're not going to see nothing. So what the magnets are doing is moving the particles, the molecules of the gas. It perturbs the field of the gas. So if you don't have any medium, how is going to even project a gas, a light?
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, the light is like it doesn't exist. The light is just radiation, and it needs some kind of field to exist.
Yeah.
Aren't those? But aren't
exactly.
Those vacuum tubes or no?
I believe these are vacuum tubes, but I'm not sure.
They'll be vacated, but then they fill it with certain different types of gases depending on what sort of light you want to get.
Gotcha.
I guess these would be plasma technically, and naturally, even regular standard science purports that there is plasma at really high altitudes. They say it's in the lower magnetosphere where you've got these ionized gases, basically plasma that may luminesce if excited enough or in the right conditions. But I could definitely see that sort of thing bending the incoming light from celestial objects, or perhaps this is just a shot going out on a limb here, but we don't know if perhaps the lights that we see in the sky are a result of ionized gases or plasma.
Wow! Look at the look at the helium one, and that's what. Where does helium go? Goes up, and then you got that whole entire blue spectrum there. Unbelievable. I wonder if there's anything that produces green light, because that's one thing you don't see. Stars usually don't show green.
The xenon gas is produced some green light.
Green.
Yeah. And in fact, something that also maybe is
what's next to helium? What's next to helium to the right there? The orange.
Next to helium, neon.
Oh, neon.
It start with hydrogen, then helium.
So it kind of goes
neon,
by the lightest.
Argon.
The lightest being hydrogen, right? Then helium.
Yes.
I think that might be in order.
Let me just put it. The last one is nitrogen.
Okay.
Is nitrogen. But what I'm trying to say is when I start studying the electrical universe, first of all, with electricity, you have orientation. And that is one of the rules of our electricity. Let me just show this.
Electric field lines are perpendicular to the source and the terminal. That is, they always come out perpendicular to surfaces that are positive and enter perpendicular to the surfaces that are negative. Perpendicular at all times. This can be easily demonstrations. Soaked in vegetable oil are little lettuce seeds, and each side is getting charged oppositely. You'll notice the electric field is perpendicular to the conductors, even if the conductor is just a single point charge. Notice also that the electric field is zero inside of this conductor. That is, there are no lettuce seeds moving.
Like in the North Pole, maybe.
Wow.
And also, let me just play this because...
You can witness the electric field in action when using a plasma ball. The electric field around a plasma ball is strong enough to ionize mercury. neon, helium, and even the air itself. But the effect weakens with distance.
And that is one of the supposedly properties of gravity, right?
Yeah.
But it's because it's taken from the Coulomb laws.
Coulomb laws, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that is why we have night and we have day. Because if the source of light is going away, the power is going to weak with distance. It's just obviously. But what I'm trying to close the topic is when you hear this guy, which is a guy that is in contact with all the Don Scott and the Thunderbolt Project research. It's called Lehman, the surname of this guy. I can't remember the name. He tells you very clearly, if you go outside of the atmosphere, you are not going able to see light in any way.
When you actually look at a source in outer space, it is not transmitted. Light is not transmitted in the visible spectrum in outer space. The visible spectrum effect of the sun is created by the upper atmosphere. It will blind you, but you can't. See is the refraction of the sun in the upper atmosphere.
Not the sun.
When you get out of the atmosphere, between you.
And then we wonder why NASA won't show any images of stars from space.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, when I try to recreate that on computer software, here, for example, this is a fisheye lens. This is a fisheye lens. That is why it's black on the corners. But here you can see a little tiny, light up on the surface, like a white point here on the surface.
Can see it.
There is a light. There is a light. In fact, it's that tiny icon here called sun. This is Arnold render. You can see the light there, but you can see it. You can see in the real, the real output because there is no atmosphere. When I recreate, and this is based on physical parameters. Of course, it's a computer software, but I am not putting here, some kind of glass material. No. This software itself has the capability to create a dense medium. So immediately, even at 0.01 of the density, immediately start show up the light source. So when the people says something like, if you take a telescope and here, for example, you can see the brightness of the light increase, but it's not increase in the source light. It's increase in the dense of the medium.
And you're only at 0.01.
And now we are in 0.07
right.
in this software scale. But what I'm trying to say is when the people take a telescope and, they say, if you look, why you can see from New York to Spain when supposedly when you point up in the sky, we can see million and million of kilometers away. Of course, that is in your mind, but the real thing is, well, for that to be true, show me that same observation above 30 kilometers where the ozone layer is off.
Right.
Because after all, if not, you just only see the light projection 30 kilometers to the atmosphere. You are not seeing million of miles. It's just 30 kilometers. The same kind of longitude you can reach pointing horizontal with a telescope.
Right. So like on the macro level, the atmosphere or the atmosphere behaves as a diffraction lens where the light is actually rendered in the visible spectrum when it passes through that layer of atmosphere.
Yes.
Yeah.
All we see is just the manifestation of the radiation of this power source called sun on the atmosphere, on gases. If you don't have a medium, you don't have light. You have radiation, but you don't have light. You can see light without a medium. It's impossible to manifestate. So that is why the light doesn't travel
Right.
It's propagate. It's not travel. But that is the trickery thing, because if you use the word propagate instead of travel, immediately you are assuming that there is a medium, because if not, it's impossible to propagate.
Yeah, I completely
we can
agree.
do a complete presentation of.
Well, so if we, is anyone familiar with any tests done in a vacuum chamber with light, and to see how, if you run a beam of light through a vacuum chamber and then, then allow it to pass through an atmosphere, what happens with it? I'd be curious to see.
You cannot create a
Can't
total
replicate
vacuum.
it. Yeah.
It's impossible. You're always gonna have molecule inside.
Well, sure, but you could get an idea, I think.
You can maybe. The thing is, if you put, for example, a tiny light bulb inside of vacuum chamber, you still are your own vacuum with gas inside the light bubble,
right.
The light bulb. So how you need something
you need a source light like a sun.
Yeah,
right.
and in fact, let me just show the last thing about this topic, because it's really interesting. Let me just and maybe some of you already seen this video, but let me just put it and key. And this is amazing, because this guy, which is not a flat earther, is going to create like a tiny miniature sun or star.
That's a lady.
That's a lady.
Yeah, so I have it cut it off in only 3 minutes, but something that caught my attention is all the time, or I must be say, any time that you need to recreate this kind of energy, your background is on alchemist and occultism, and you're gonna see a lot of Egyptian symbolism and things like that.
So excited to be here today. So the first time I met Paul, so this is many years ago, I walked in and he said, Karen.
First of all, here, for example, you see like a Vimana, which is like a Veda Hindu concept of, some kind of a spacecraft, things like that. Then you're going to see the eyes of Horus.
I created this sun in a jar. I got this star in a jar. I'm like, you're kidding me. He's like, oh yeah, all that stuff you've learned, put it on the back of your brain, because I'm going to show you something awesome.
And that phrase is really important. All the things that you learn, put in the back of your brain. It's like she's telling you, all the things that you learn on school and university based on the standard model is bullshit.
But this is just to show off. This is to show off Paul and some of the that chemistry works. And so
what this really is a oversimplification.
Here you can see the eyes of Horus, and then you're gonna see more clearly
of what dragon really is.
And
it's combining a frequency together, and they both attract.
Here you can clearly see the eye of Horus, and when he talks about dragon, when he talks about yin and yang, all we see the model of the symbol of the yin and yang over the flat plane or over the Gleason map, because the moon and the sun, they are exchanging energy.
They want what each other has. There's value. Contrary to what they teach in science. The universe is actually magnetic and light. It's not gravitational driven. So what this is I'm going to electrical and magnetic field. This is the male or yang field, and this silver one inside is the yin or female field.
Fascinating.
So females like to do, they are going to go at it. So with no further ado, this over in order to help. So instead of a sun actually being a fusion generator eating hydrogen and helium, and over time, it's going to use all of its fuel. The sun is actually being powered by something else.
So, and here start the nice thing. Of course, we hear it like contrary to what they teach. The universe is magnetic and light is like, say, electrical. It's magnetic, gravitational driven. Then he said he talks about it's powering with something else, because nobody knows what is the source of the light of the sun.
Right.
Even the light in your own house, nobody knows how it's produced. So let's keep going.
There's something else that's acting on that
something else,
field, if you will, that's creating that sun.
There's no fusion of the sun. They don't know how. It's a transformer. Transforms some other dimension. It's not burning anything. It doesn't have to. It's a converter. Of what? I don't know. Nobody knows. But that's what it does. That's the only thing it can do.
And now it's gonna say something that blow your mind, my mind at least, based on all this light projecting on the gases.
We lost the sound. It's been kind of intermittent. I don't hear it now.
You can hear it now, the audio?
Yeah, it's been kind of choppy, but I think I heard it start again. Go ahead.
Okay.
An envelope in the surface of the moon or whatever, that makes the light. So that means there's no time delay. So the whole time delay is meaningless. Doesn't take years. There are no light years because there's no light.
Thank you, Eric.
So that the light you see from distant stars isn't 4 million years old. It could be old. It could be yes. All the theories collapse when you can't see stars in outer space.
So I don't know for you guys, but that phrase, like all the theory collapse when you cannot see stars in outer space, is for me it's really powerful.
Yeah, me too. It's certainly.
And,
you good?
Stop sharing. I'm stop sharing the screen and reshare with us your screen.
Okay, we'll do here. Skype and share. Okay. I think that's basically what I wanted to talk about. So are you seeing it yet? Oh, great. I messed up. Now you can see it.
I was just going to make a quick comment that, you hear all the time coming from the Globe Earth team that this observation of space or that observation of the sun or stars or whatever isn't possible on a flat Earth. And when you really delve deeper, like we sort of have this evening, into what light is and how light operates and how it's can be bent around with magnetic fields, and you've got self-illuminating plasma. Just the properties of light make it so that anybody who is going to, make that sort of blanket statement 100% that, the sun or light couldn't do this on a flat Earth, in my opinion, they really don't understand light, because from where I'm sitting, light can do pretty much anything on a flat Earth. And, if we don't have a 100% cogent explanation for every last thing, to me, that's okay. It means that we need to, to research more and do more experiments. But from where I'm sitting, it really makes perfect sense. Some of the problems with, the sun rising and setting at 90 and 270 or whatever. I just don't see that as a big issue, even on an AE projection, because of how light functions and because of your personal atmospheric dome that's subjective and follows you around wherever you go to varying degrees depending on the weather, really. It really falls together very nicely. And I just wish that the Globe Earthers would spend a little bit more time understanding how light works and what light is. And there is a mystery there.
But they don't want to admit that. They don't want to admit that. They think that everything's been figured out, that there's great smart men that know exactly how the sun works, that Lawrence Krauss tells us that the light that comes out of the center takes 1 million years to get to the corona. It's just, they want to believe that all those things are true, that people are that smart, that they just don't want to, they don't like mystery. They don't like the idea of we haven't figured everything out. It's scary as hell to them. I've mentioned all the time how Neil deGrasse Tyson, these guys who tell everybody how unimportant they are, it just makes themselves important by saying so. So to me, it's just ridiculous that that people wouldn't welcome the idea of, like you said, we don't know. And flat earthers all admit that they don't know everything. We don't know what the moon is. We don't know what the sun is. But it may be something that isn't meant for us to know, that it's something that is meant to be awe-striking, that is meant to be something you look at and say, wow, this is really proof of a creation, proof of an intelligence beyond our own that is behind all this. And science has been crafted around the opposite of that idea, which is there is no need for a creator. They say if the energy of the universe balances to zero, that there is no need for a creation or a creator, that there is no need for intelligence. These guys like Neil deGrasse and Lawrence Krauss and all, they want to be the most intelligent thing that's ever been in existence. And so they don't even take the ideas I've talked about in my quotes videos and other videos. This is what science has become. This is why we can say science has been hijacked. They've been hijacked because their goal is to prove their side of the story, which is that nothing was needed to create all this. And they'll go through extreme lengths and extreme experiments and testing and different tests and everything just to try and come back with an answer that the universe came from nothing. That's what they want, and they'll do anything it takes to get there.
Right, and so they have just such a confirmation bias when it comes to confirming their narrative or confirming their beliefs, but then they tend to just completely reject and just refuse to consider something that goes against their beliefs. And, at that point, you're no longer involved in science, right? I mean, that's very much the opposite of science, but that's exactly right. I mean, ever since, the Copernican principle was sort of carved in stone as a scientific axiom that we must adhere to and we must worship, really. And anyone who thinks outside of that box of, they're basically the mediocrity principle of Earth, then you're ostracized. It's heresy to the religion of scientism.
Correct.
So
yeah, and once you get into that line of business and you start working with those people, even if you have different ideas, you're usually going to be shifted out. So it takes people like Eric Dollard and other people like that that are okay with being shifted out of the mainstream science, but they're not even paid attention to because you're not pushing the idea. Same thing with Ellis and these other guys, that once you start mentioning, hey, shouldn't we mention that the and just people see the video that's on the screen right now. Again, it's interesting because Iru was just talking about earlier how everything comes out of the North Pole of the magnet entering the South, which is very interesting. And then when you talk about the bundt cake pan, again, if you've ever seen one of those, I'll put that in real quick.
And for me, and I just going to simplify this concept, but we can see on experiment that the only way to bend light is based on magnets. Immediately, you have it there. You need a black. You don't need a black hole to bend light.
Right.
Whoever invented the bundt cake was a flat earther.
Absolutely. No, so I mean, when you start looking at this kind of idea, and then you put yourself underneath it, inside, and you have the sun going around, you're going to see different things in your little personal atmospheric dome. Sun setting south of west, and maybe rising south of east in the south. You're going to see all that. And so we've tried to explain it. Do we understand it fully? No, but these kind of things are put out there so that other people who are starting to look into this stuff have an idea of where to start and what kind of things we need to uncover. Or you can just believe that we know everything and that the sun is a nuclear device in space, and that it's, creating its own energy and will last billions of years, and we've been here billions of years, and the starlight that you see is millions of years old, and you can believe all that if you want, but I think there's some much better explanations, truly. So,
yeah, for sure.
We did talk about a bunch today. I think we're going to kind of round it up. A reminder that Globebusters will be back next week. On Sunday. Yeah, Iru can celebrate. Bob can get back at the helm, so I don't have to do it and struggle through it. And he has a better sound setup, I think, than I do, so we don't have to have these echoes and problems. So check us out. That'll be next Sunday at noon Pacific. If you weren't here for the beginning of the show, I did mention that we have a Globebusters 24/7 channel. You can just scroll down in the description of this video. If you want to do that now, scroll down. The very first link that you see will send you to Globebusters 24/7. We'd appreciate a subscribe over there, or at the very least, join us next Sunday at noon Pacific for another show. Let's round it up with just a final thoughts. Go ahead first, Iru. Anything you have going on, where people can find you, and final thoughts.
Yeah, I have my webpage in Spanish, but you can translate it automatically. It's called Nur para todos, which is for everyone, .com.ar, or you can go to my English channel, Nur for Everyone, or Nur para todos in Spanish. I have, if you want to contribute with my research, I have a Patreon with the same name. I have a PayPal. And here I trying to make, we have a really busy the last 2 weeks, because we make here in Argentina, and you can call it International Flat Earth Conference, because it come people from Spain, from around 5 countries beside Argentina, and the media turns crazy.
What's your website again, real quick? I tried punching it in, but I'm not getting it.
Okay, I type here I type here in the chat. Let me just.
I must be spelling it wrong. Or something.
Yeah, because I am not good spelling. Okay, I put it there.
Oh,
so,
.com.ar. Sorry, I thought you said either one. Okay, got you. So it's nurparatodos.com.ar.
Yeah, your pronunciation is great, man.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. So. What I'm trying to say is we make a Flat Earth International Conference with around 250 people come to this meeting, and the media here in Argentina it's take that the notice, I don't know which is the name, the news,
right,
and around of the principal mass media come to cover the conference, and the media in the Spanish community turns completely crazy. I mean, it passed 3 weeks and still talking about the flat Earth in all the news, in the newspaper, in television, in regular programs. So it was really, it has a really big impact on the flat Earth movement. Because even the New York Times took the event here in Argentina. So I spend a lot of time doing, giving interviews in radio shows and televisions and things like that. And supposedly this week I'm gonna, slow down and take time for create content, new content for my YouTube channel. So I hope I can make something in English for the Nur for Everyone channel.
Awesome. Yeah, and both those links are in the description to Iru's 2 YouTube channels, Nur para Todos and Nur for Everyone. All right, and thank you. We'll see you next week, Iru. And if you want to do that presentation this week, just let me know what day works for you, and I'll try and fit it in. I would love to listen to a Electric Universe presentation. Would love that.
Okay.
All right, and John, final words?
Yeah, great show, guys. Had fun. As always, I've got a bunch of new content on the channel on YouTube, so if you haven't been there in a while, check out the Morgile channel. And thanks to everyone in the live chat. It was always really good time talking with you guys. I think we have some really good discussions for Flat Earth, and I just really am glad to be a part of it and had a blast. So thanks, everyone.
All right, well, thank you both for being on the show. I didn't go through the super chats. There was just a few of them, so I'll go through those real quick. We've got Dan Morris, who said, very glad to hear that Globebusters era is not ending. We Flat Earthers are just getting warmed up. Bob, Jeran, Iru, John, we appreciate you all. Thank you for producing the go-to show for Sundays. That's awesome. Thank you, Dan. I'm sure we appreciate that a lot. And thank everybody in the chat, as always. We've got one from Jose Merced, who's got my city as his last name. Keep doing your thing, Jeran. Thank you very much for that. And Frank Jackson said, $5, told my teacher no buying earth around sun. I don't know. $5, told my teacher no buying earth around sun. Okay. That's...
Oh, not buying it.
Oh, he's not buying it. All right. I don't buy it either. I wish I could go back to school and tell my teachers that, but unfortunately I was under a heavy bit of indoctrination to where they put that globe in front of me, told me I lived on it, told me it was spinning, told me it was flying through space, told me it was moving at some speed, told me that their sun is a lot bigger than the Earth, and pretty much left it there. And then when you get older and you try and go look at this stuff and you start finding out some of these crazy nonsense speeds and how it all works, and then you realize that there's no tests that prove it, and you can choose for yourself what you want to believe. But for me, it's kind of like we were saying earlier, that really when you look at the plethora of evidence, I just can't believe in the globe anymore. There's just not enough evidence there, not as much as there should be to be teaching it as such a fact. And then also you look at the hate that you get for just mentioning that it may be something different, and all of a sudden you might start to realize you're stumbling on some undocumented proof, whatever you want to call it, some unfounded proof, some stuff that maybe was hid from us a long time ago, which we know is the case. They've hid a lot of our history, and it wouldn't surprise me at all, and doesn't surprise me at all that they hid exactly where we live, because I think it's of prime importance. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. Thank you guys for the super chats. Again, I won't mention my Amazon link because that is no longer working, so you don't have to use that anymore if you don't want until I let you know that it's back on, which I doubt. We'll find that out within a couple days. But you can support this channel, as always, by going to paypal.me/Jeran. You can do that. That'd be awesome. Or you can go to patreon.com/jeranism. Either of those will work. I put them both on the screen here. Just ignore the Amazon link when it comes up. So yeah, and there's a link to John's channel in the description, and a link to both Iru's channels. And there you can find their many links to support them as well. And on Iru's website that we were just looking at, you can find places to support him. And John, what's your paypal.me address again?
Yeah, it's all the Morguile. So paypal.me/themorguile, and or you can use the email address themorguile@gmail.com, and of course patreon.com/themorguile.
All right, sounds beautiful, guys. I appreciate you guys being here and joining me, and hopefully we have Bob back at the helm next week. And check us out on the Globebusters channel. That is, as always, at 12 p.m. Pacific, unless it's me in charge, and then it'll be a little bit late. Sorry about that, but you know me. That's how it goes. All right, guys, a reminder to do your own research, because when you do, you'll never again believe what you've been taught. Till next time, this has been Jeranism. Peace.
Peace out.
Peace out.